One Piece Blades of Fire Chapter 201-220. Chapter 201 Welcome. With Zhang Yang's current strength, even if he does nothing, the warship will sail to Dressrosa in a smooth and orderly manner. So soon, the world government has taken action against the various branches of marine. Sitting cross-legged on the deck, Zhang Yang was looking at the newspaper that just fell from his head, and muttered to himself, and as time passed, the sea breeze also had a fragrance of flowers, and as the warship continued to sail, this smell is getting stronger and stronger, but it is not offensive, at least Zhang Yang thinks so, and suddenly there is a feeling of refreshment. Until a certain moment, when Zhang Yang opened his eyes, he found that he was approaching the island in front of him, and there were a lot of mushroom-shaped rocks on the coast of this island. I want to see the so-called bird cage. On the other side, Dressrosa, who used to be calm and peaceful in the past, is a little different now. Get out of the way, get out of the way. Dressrosa, footsteps sounded one after another, and a large group of men wearing beetle-like hoods caused a commotion in the crowd. Arranged neatly and orderly. Did anything big happen today? Just when the people were surprised, they saw Doflamingo, who came to him, surrounded by a group of dignified figures, but for a moment, everyone was dumbfounded, and the surroundings were silent. Gollum. Until, when Doflamingo and the others gradually disappeared, they swallowed a mouthful of saliva. What happened? All the officials of the Don Quixote family gathered together, and even Doflamingo came forward in person. There will be no important people coming to Dressrosa, it needs Doflamingo to gather the strength of the whole family confrontation. I don't think the atmosphere is right, it's like going out to meet someone in person. Could it be a senior official of the world government, or Tenryubito, or Marshal Marine? Also Marshal Marine. Marine has left the world government at this time, and we Dressrosa are now under the world government. How could it be Marshal Marine? Looking at the direction they are going, it should be the coast. In the midst of the suspicion, many people followed Doflamingo from a distance, wanting to see what happened, and when someone took the lead, naturally there were also followers. Doflamingo, who was standing in the middle of the cadres, was expressionless at the moment, but the cadres around him were nervous, publicizing the name. Since the first time he appeared in the sea and let everyone know it, it was like a cannonball. It slammed into the sea in an endless stream, setting off a big wave. Recently, it is even rumored that he killed the strongest Gorosei, 5 elders by himself, but it was just such a person. At this moment their Don Quixote family was ordered by the Gorosei, 5 elders to provoke him, and even more coincidentally yes, according to the report of the spies, the direction of Zhang Yang's voyage is Dressrosa. Daffy, are we really going to provoke that man? Continuing to walk towards the coast, Diamante, one of the 3 senior cadres, looked at Doflamingo with a hint of complexity in his eyes. Diamante, you use the wrong word. This man is indeed something we can't provoke, but we can't provoke and we can't hide. Doflamingo's voice paused, then showed a sneer, and said, then why don't we borrow him to achieve our goal? The feeling of being in the center of the arrow will make people excited. We have this country, including great strength. These are essential factors for the success of the negotiation. Diamante pursed his lips and said, then what should the Gorosei, 5 elders explain? Relying on those few immortals, we can only stay within a limit forever, but if we follow this man, it will be different. Just as Doflamingo was talking, everyone had come to the shore and stood on the mushroom-shaped rock. Treble took a breath, and when he pointed the cane with the plum blossom symbol toward the front, there was a hint of fear in his expression. It should be that warship. Put. Should you come to meet me? At this moment, on the warship that was gradually approaching the shore, although Zhang Yang discovered Doflamingo and the others, he did not know what the other party had in mind, especially when he saw the people lined up on both sides of the coast. Zhang Yang thought a little strangely, but the next moment gave up the idea. Having read the publicity of the original book, they know Doflamingo's cunning and insidiousness, and now that they are the opposite of the world government, it is naturally impossible for them to do such a thing. However, a wise man will fail, but Zhang Yang has forgotten that the strength he has now is enough to make anyone feel fear. And Doflamingo and they are no exception. Marine warship. Could it really be Marshal Marine or Admiral? It shouldn't be possible. Doflamingo is on the side of the world government. When they saw the warship gradually approaching the coast, the people not far behind Doflamingo were a little surprised to see this scene. Under the watchful eyes of countless people and Doflamingo and his family cadres, the warship finally slowly leaned to the shore, and a figure appeared on the eaves, looking down at everyone, with a hint of doubt in his eyes. Doflamingo showed a smile and looked up at the figure. Recently, the name of the god of death has been rumored, and today I finally saw him. It turned out to be him. Immediately, everyone was shocked. The visitor turned out to be the god of death who is now famous in the world, and threatened to dissect the corpses of Gorosei, 5 elders and transform them into androids. God, how is this possible? What is the god of death doing here? Are you going to attack Dressrosa? When countless eyes looked at Zhang Yang, the panic and shock in their expressions were incredible, everywhere. Heavenly Yaksha, do you welcome me to visit Dressrosa? Zhang Yang stood at the eaves of the boat, especially when he saw Doflamingo's harmless smile, his doubts deepened. When did someone like Doflamingo change his personality? Chapter 202 Birdcage. That's a must, the famous god of death, can I welcome you here with a grand reception? Doflamingo smiled and opened his mouth. Seeing that Zhang Yang didn't mean to get off the boat, he raised his brows. At this moment, his figure slowly rose up. But just as he was about to come to Zhang Yang, Doflamingo's complexion suddenly changed. There seemed to be an invisible mountain above him that instantly suppressed him. The strong pressure made his figure suddenly fall from the air at this moment. Seeing that his feet were about to hit the ground, Doflamingo's eyes flashed a ruthless look, and the momentum of his whole body suddenly poured out at this moment, and his figure suddenly resisted the pressure. Puff! But only for a moment. Doflamingo spit out a mouthful of blood, his momentum weakened, his figure fell, his feet slammed down heavily, leaving dents and cracks on the rock, a sea breeze blew, and the pressure on his head was also go with the wind. Young Master. Dafi. When the cadres saw this scene, their hearts were shocked. This was just momentum. Before that man made a move, his strength was already very obvious. It's better for you to stand on the ground, it's quite comfortable to look down at people. When Zhang Yang's voice came out, Doflamingo just wiped the blood on the corner of his mouth with his hand, and there was no other movement, and his face was not embarrassed, but followed by a smile. When this strange scene fell in Zhang Yang's eyes, his eyes shrank unchecked, and he couldn't help but be extremely surprised. When did Doflamingo change his personality and bully him like this? He didn't respond. The more he thought about Zhang Yang, the more strange he felt. And Doflamingo's voice came out at this time. It really is the man at the top of the pyramid of the world, but the aura he exudes at will is so strong. Zhang Yang dismissed it and said, in my impression, Heavenly Yaksha doesn't look like someone who can flatter others. Tell me, what is your purpose? Since that's the case, then I'll say it straight to the point of gate of opening. I plan to form an alliance with you. The cadres of our Don Quixote family are not weak, and I am the king of Dressrosa. Doflamingo looked high-spirited, but he was interrupted by Zhang Yang before he finished speaking. I said, Joker, are you still awake? Why do you think I'll work with you and are you qualified? Zhang Yang snorted coldly, and couldn't help show. This guy turned out to be playing this little abacus, but now he's probably going to be disappointed. What he lacks most is people, and what he lacks the most is powerful people, such as Golden Lion, Whitebeard, Red the Aloof, etc., although they are not their own little brothers, but they respond immediately, and Zhang Yang is still confident. I know of course that even this is not enough. As if he knew that Zhang Yang would say this, there was no embarrassment on Doflamingo's face, but this surprised Zhang Yang again, only to hear Doflamingo continue, I can provide you with artificial devil fruits. You have to know that devil fruit has a huge increase in the human body, and now, if you ally with me, I will provide you with these for free. An army of capable people, then. Zhang Yang interrupted this Cao Nian's speech again. Today, I am not recruiting allies. Besides, the artificial devil fruit may be very interested in the old immortals and others, but there is no temptation for me. When the words fell, the spiritual pressure in Zhang Yang's body burst out. When the wind swept all around, it was like turning into a palm in the sky. At this moment, when Doflamingo and his cadres were shot fiercely, everyone was knocked down. On the ground, even Doflamingo's knees were trembling, his teeth were clenched, he was sweating coldly, and it was difficult to move. Joker, take your people, get out of Dressrosa. Zhang Yang shouted, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. In that case, Doflamingo's eyes flashed coldly, and at this moment, countless threads of silk burst out from him, which directly covered the ground here, but in just a moment, the threads converged to form a clone, and appeared in front of Zhang Yang at a gallop, controlling the 5 colors in his hands. But Zhang Yang was expressionless, stretched out his hand and stretched his finger forward. The avatar disintegrated in an instant, turning into silk threads and falling with the wind. Doflamingo's face was gloomy, and when his mind moved, lines that turned into the ground rose from the ground at this moment, dozens of sharp lines. Giant lines shot directly towards Zhang Yang. I was thinking of letting you go for the sake of flattering you, but now it seems. Zhang Yang sneered. There is no need for this. At this moment, the radiated spiritual pressure was suddenly absorbed in the body. Just when the pressure on everyone disappeared, all the spiritual pressure in Zhang Yang's body was unreserved at this moment, swept across the 4 directions, and was the first to touch it. Those giant silk threads that rose from the ground quickly disintegrated and split in the next moment. In just an instant, this spiritual pressure swept away like a ripple, and the cadres who were caught off guard suddenly fell to the ground again by squirting a mouthful of blood, and Doflamingo was no exception. Vivi was directly suppressed under the stalemate. Is this the god of death? So strong. I really came to trouble the Don Quixote family. Seeing Zhang Yang's strength at this moment, or even just aura, Doflamingo and the others couldn't stop it. All the people around were shocked, and they began to believe the rumor that he killed Gorose, 5 elders. Zhang Yang, you have to remember one thing. Doflamingo, who was overwhelmed on the ground, looked ugly, sneered, and the murderous intent that had been concealed in his eyes exploded at this moment. Today next year is your death day. Well, is it just you? He opened his mouth and looked at Doflamingo mockingly, and even tapped his finger forward at this moment. Doflamingo's face was grim, as if another mountain was pressing down on his body, causing the ground to collapse into a deep pit. Ha ha, you can't escape. In fact, you shouldn't come out alone. But, since you're here, just wait to die. Doflamingo spat out a mouthful of blood, but was still smiling. After a pause, Vivi moved his fingers. Bird cage. Chapter 203 Fight 4. As soon as Zhang Yang's eyes moved, he saw silk threads suddenly appear around him, forming a cage, and as the threads continued to shrink, the threads gradually cut through the warship. If you want me to stay here, you can say it clearly. Why do you need to do this? With a chuckle, Zhang Yang took a step forward. When the afterimage stayed in place, his figure had already come to the crowd, sitting cross-legged on the rock in the sight of everyone. They always heard that the god of death is very arrogant, but today can be regarded as an experience. Doflamingo, who was lying in the big pit, was not surprised by this scene, but sneered. However, today, you may learn a lesson. Then I'll have to keep you alive and let you take a good look. Zhang Yang sat cross-legged, and after saying this, the coast was silent, including the surrounding people, who seemed to be infected by the atmosphere. Just as the sea breeze was blowing and the waves were beating, with the passage of time, the warship collapsed directly into a rubble and sank to the bottom of the sea under the constant shrinkage of the bird cage. Until a certain moment, the space here seemed to have special energy overflowing. An invisible ripple spread out, and when the waves on the sea were smoothed, Zhang Yang's eyes slowly opened. That is, at this time, the void suddenly distorted. There were suddenly 4 figures in black suits in front of Zhang Yang. It turned out to be Gorose, 5 elders. Except for the one who was killed. They usually stay at home, but 4 of them came this time. Is this for revenge? The people who didn't know it were all horrified. They took a deep breath and spoke in shock. Not only that, but when they looked at Zhang Yang, they couldn't help but feel a little melancholy. I am afraid that such a person will die today. After all, according to everyone's perception, even if Zhang Yang killed one, it would be too reluctant to fight 4 Gorosei, 5 elders at the same time, and the final consequence is that lightness is one death, and the point is. See how Gorosei, 5 elders will torture Zhang Yang. Huh, old people, I didn't expect you to really look down on me. Zhang Yang was also stunned when he saw the 4 figures that suddenly appeared. Although he expected that the Gorosei, 5 elders would take advantage of his opportunity to go out alone, he never thought that all the remaining 4 would take action. Zhang Yang slowly regained his senses and chuckled. It's okay, sooner or later I'll find you anyway, it's just right to have a pot. The ultimate virtual form. Just as the words fell, Zhang Yang's body suddenly mutated while everyone was dumbfounded. His whole body was covered with white bones, like a bone man, and even his teeth suddenly grew, and 2 groups of ghost fires rose from Zhang Yang's skull. The position of the eyes is extremely shocking. The black smoke was condensed around him, and he was put on a loose black robe, and the whole person was like a god of death. What is it? Exactly. Is it a human? Is a ghost? How do you feel like a corpse? Everyone present was shocked, including the 4 Gorosei, 5 elders. It was the first time they saw Zhang Yang in this form. When they felt the majestic death aura, their eyes were full of fear until this moment. They more or less believed in the fact that the death of Yizhang was caused by Zhang Yang. The murderous intent in his eyes erupted violently, and the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders said in a cold voice, even if you kill Yizhang. But, facing the 4 of us, do you think you have a chance of winning? Try it, you won't know, why so much nonsense? As he spoke, Zhang Yang stepped forward and appeared directly in front of Gorosei, 5 elders George with a long white beard. When his withered right hand stretched out from his sleeve, he smashed forward very flatly and slowly. Pong, click, click. An almost transparent light curtain suddenly appeared around George, and when Zhang Yang slammed the punch, there was a low sound, and then the next moment, George's complexion suddenly changed, followed by a clicking sound. As it intensified, the traces of air bursts appeared one after another. What? Broke George's defense. The eyes of the other 3 Gorosei, 5 elders shrank suddenly. The blonde Gorosei, 5 elders roared loudly, raised their fists, and suddenly approached the publicity as if they were crushing, and smashed them with a punch. However, Zhang Yang didn't care. When the fist that had been smashed broke the light curtain, he was caught off guard and continued to slam. The huge force even left a dent in George's chest. Pong, pong. The blonde Gorosei, 5 elders punched abruptly, pressing straight towards Zhang Yang's forehead, but was blocked by a dry palm, and when he frowned, he punched again, setting off a sonic boom. When the sound was heard, Zhang Yang took a step back. This strength has broken through the limits of the human body. Is it because of the devil fruit? The blonde Gorosei, 5 elders was excited, but even more so with Zhang Yang. Unexpectedly, with his strength, he did not have the upper hand, but was weaker by 1 point. At this moment, Zhang Yang glanced abruptly, and found that the black light beam bursting from the fingertips of the short Gorosei, 5 elders was approaching, and then the wooden walking stick of the curly-haired old man took off its shell and turned into a shining yellow light. The cross, with a wave of the cross, an energy ball filled with dazzling rays of light followed the footsteps of the beam and shot out. Pong! As if he had already smashed with the power of breaking the army, it collided with Zhang Yang's dry fist. His heart moved, Zhang Yang raised his other hand, and when he pushed it forward, a hurricane shot out from his palm, directly causing the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders. The figure burst out. Can't drag and fight. After all, they are 4. With a slight movement of mind, Zhang Yang waved his sleeve robe, and when the black light beam and its energy ball burst out, a huge and deep defensive wall suddenly blocked, and cracks continued to appear in the whole body vibration. Not good. The blonde Gorosei, 5 elders murmured, and the moment they saw Zhang Yang's body disappear, a sonic boom erupted, turning into an afterimage, and the body also disappeared in place at this moment. As for the other 2 Gorosei, 5 elders also followed. It was a long story, but it only happened in an instant. After George's figure stabilized, when he looked up, he saw a figure in front of him, like a god of death, holding a long sword and turning it into a black sickle. Chapter 204 of Each Magical Power. It was said that when George looked up, he saw Zhang Yang who appeared in front of him and was holding the black sickle. His eyes shrank suddenly, and he immediately placed several defensive light curtains all over his body. An enchantment that freezes space and stops time. I'm afraid you never thought you would die one day. In George's terrified expression, accompanied by the twinkling of 2 ghost fires in Zhang Yang's eyes, the figure of the enchantment froze, as if breaking the rules, and moved at this moment. When the black sickle smashed on the defensive light curtain, there was no loud roar and the earth shook, as if the black sickle erupted with annihilating power at this moment, and the light curtain instantly dissolved. The black sickle exploded in succession. Seeing that it was about to slash at George in the next breath, a mutation protruded. When a roar sounded, a black sphere the size of a water droplet passed by, leaving a black trajectory in the void. It was at the next moment that it smashed into the black sickle. Zhang Yang frowned. The handle of the sickle, which was originally held in one hand, had to be held tightly with both hands at this moment, but in front of this sphere, the entire black sickle was still trembling, making it impossible for the black sickle to be cut off and relying on this timing. George then backed out, keeping a distance from Zhang Yang, and his hands were palm-shaped. When he stretched forward, a shock wave swept through the void, as if the air was being swallowed at this moment, and the next moment, he directly moved towards Zhang Yang plundered. Fuck! Zhang Yang scolded, and when the spiritual pressure of his whole body burst out, he slammed the black sickle, and the black ball that was like a gangrenous bone instantly fell off and was smashed into the sea by the black sickle. Boom! When seeing such a small ball smashed into the sea, causing a violent shaking of even the island, and when a shocking deep pit appeared in the sea, even Zhang Yang looked a little horrified. It seems that Gorosei, 5 elders are all capable of supernatural powers. 1 is fine, 2 would be troublesome, if the 5 of them attacked me together. Horror, even if the strength reaches that level, anyone is sure to die. And without exception. Zhang Yang's thoughts were surging, and he looked at the shock wave that came, and when he looked at George, he had a strong killing intent. It seems that no matter what, you must kill someone first, otherwise sooner or later I will be killed. It really can't be kept from the beginning. After the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders murmured, he let out a roar, and the next moment his figure swelled rapidly, and even his suit was torn apart. After the change here caught Zhang Yang's attention, Vivi couldn't help frowning. It's zone. Devil fruit. However, after seeing what happened next, Zhang Yang dismissed the idea. Although the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders swelled their bodies, the biggest change was nothing more than the muscles appearing all over their bodies, and their faces did not change in the slightest. Or the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders at the moment, just like the Hulk except for the color. Do your best. This kid is not a good stubble, be careful that the sewer capsizes. When the low voice of the curly-haired Gorosei, 5 elders sounded, his figure slowly floated up at this moment, and when there was a dazzling light behind him, there was even a pair of huge wings. Coupled with the cross in his hand, according to Zhang Yang's words, this guy is the priest taught by Jesus. The momentum formed by these two people's changes has risen rapidly. I am afraid that their strength will not be weak when they are attacked by Zhang Yang. As for the short Gorosei, 5 elders, judging from the offensive they just launched, they are not idle, while you Dao not to mention a possession. Compared with them, George in front of him is obviously the weakest, or he is just a supporter and assister, but even so, the various light curtain barriers are basically apart from him and the other 4 Gorosei, 5 elders. Besides, I am afraid there is no solution. Zhang Yang didn't care about the shock wave that came in front of him. With a wave of the black sickle, it immediately dissipated into the sky and the earth, and at this moment, the other 3 moved again. It's getting more and more fun. Zhang Yang chuckled lightly, his hands holding the handle of the sickle couldn't help but tighten, and after that, after images were left behind, and without even making any sound, the figure kept drifting towards George. Zhang Yang knew that he couldn't be in love. If he was with the four of them fighting together, the chances of killing a person are far too small. Boom boom boom. In the sight of the onlookers, shocking scenes continued to appear, among which the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders, was the one who caused the biggest roar. When the figure rushed out, the sonic boom that rubbed against the space was like a loud muffled thunder. Not only that, the space is not only distorted, but even collapsed wherever it goes. And as the curly-haired old man slapped his huge wings, the cloudless sky suddenly had a shocking streak of thunder and lightning slashing towards Zhang Yang, and at the same time waving the cross, it turned into a giant hammer emitting golden light in the air, setting off the momentum of breaking the army, with the strength of tens of millions of pounds, is like destroying the dry and pulling the rotten, from top to bottom, smashing towards the top of Zhang Yang's head. As for the short man Gorosei, 5 elders, although the moves are not as shocking as these two people, their terrifying power should not be underestimated. At the same time, it smashed directly towards Zhang Yang, and at the same time set off a wave of fire. Although they also generally believed that the last Gorosei, 5 elders, were the weakest, at this moment, when a glass-like diamond-shaped object flew out of his palm, Zhang Yang's figure was wrapped in the diamond-shaped object in an instant, and even they were clearly visible. It can be seen that Zhang Yang's figure is motionless in it. It's like being imprisoned. Is this the true strength of the Gorosei, 5 elders? Already, it can't be described as horror. Everyone, retreat. If we continue to stay here, I am afraid that the energy ripples are enough to kill us. All the people sucked in a breath of cold air. When the color of fear appeared in their pupils, when one person took the lead to retreat, everyone looked at the shocking scene in front of them, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and left, but they still couldn't bear it. Curious in their hearts, they still want to see. Let's see if Zhang Yang has any backhand at this time of almost no life. Will he die? Chapter 205 Black Yan 9 Demons Array. It can already be said that they are the top 5 people in this world. Even Zhang Yang, under the strong attack of these 4 people, was shocked, and Zhang Yang couldn't help being horrified by this diamond-shaped barrier. In this barrier, his figure was actually bound and imprisoned. Sure enough, every Gorosei, 5 elders, is not an ordinary person. Boom. Death seal. The corners of Zhang Yang's mouth twitched, and he murmured. Amidst everyone's shocked expressions, a huge projection slowly appeared, and it became clearer and clearer that it was the same as Zhang Yang's face. This is what? Gorosei, 5 elders, frowned. When looking at this huge projection, there was always an uneasy feeling in his heart. At this moment, Zhang Yang's forehead suddenly had a blood-colored edict appearing, and it was even more below. For a moment, the eyebrows quickly cracked, revealing a pitch black, like an abyss. Just as everyone was shocked, a terrifying suction force suddenly spewed out from the abyss where the eyebrows were projected. In the next moment, including the diamond-shaped enchantment, the tailed beast Jade and the warhammer changed direction at this moment, towards the abyss between the eyebrows. Rush in. Not good. Everyone's faces changed suddenly, but the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders, rushed towards Zhang Yang. Because of inertia, when he was about to rush into the abyss, there was a ruthless look in his eyes, and his right arm flashed. The arm exploded with a bang, and the flesh and blood overflowed, and then it retreated, and the right arm quickly burst into the abyss, like swallowing. But just suddenly, as the black sickle in Zhang Yang's hand disappeared, and when the dry hands suddenly buckled forward in the shape of claws, the huge projection seemed to resonate, and the 2 dry and wretched palms in the huge sleeve robe suddenly stretched out. When it turned into a claw shape, it quickly buckled towards George. The speed was so fast that at the moment George realized it, layers of light curtains appeared one after another, and the figure burst out, but the claws seemed to carry the power of annihilation. Clasped in his body. What? When there was an extreme scream, the claws exploded with a bang, and the scream was like a stone sinking into the sea, and it disappeared in an instant. At the same time, a black shadow quickly fell to the ground from midair. No, no way. Just kidding. Doflamingo and his cadres looked at the charred figure in front of them, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, looked shocked, and said somewhat incredulously, "Really? Did you kill the Gorosei, 5 elders?" Damn. The other 3 Gorosei, 5 elders, when they saw that George, who was now a corpse, looked extremely ugly when they saw that it was already a corpse. He lost his wife and lost his soldiers. The golden-haired Gorosei, 5 elders looked at the arm that was now bloodless, and the murderous intent in his eyes had reached the extreme. When a low voice sounded, the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders had already come to Zhang Yang, and a straight punch slammed into Zhang Yang's forehead. But at this moment, when Zhang Yang's eyes flashed, Vivi slanted his head and avoided the punch while everyone was dumbfounded. It must be a coincidence. The blonde Gorosei, 5 elders have always felt that his publicity skills are very strong, and his fighting skills are not as good as him. So as long as he can get close, he will definitely die. The failure of a single blow means nothing, and the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders then punches the tricky angle cane towards Zhang Yang, but what shocked him was that the fighting intent kept retreating, and he didn't even hit a punch. As Zhang Yang kept retreating, the black sickle suddenly appeared and threw it out. When the black glow appeared, it directly blocked the other 2 Gorosei, 5 elders like a hot wheel. Boom. But at this moment, the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders suddenly changed their offensive. When the right hand fell and lifted, it was like a steel gun, without the slightest arc, and it was directly raised. When the whistling sound came, it was like a giant hammer, smashing it towards Zhang Yang's shoulder. Down. But what surprised Gorosei, 5 elders was that Zhang Yang directly bowed his knees at this moment, and when he dodged the punch, his entire figure turned into a cloud of black mist, and when his footsteps staggered, he instantly appeared behind him. Pung. Zhang Yang clasped his hands together tightly, and slammed towards the back of the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders with a strong force, which directly sent him down from the sky. Go to hell. At the same time, Zhang Yang's palm was facing the bottom, and a giant pillar of thunder and lightning suddenly slammed out when the thunder light gathered. But just at the critical moment, after the black sickle, the curly-haired old man flapping his wings and waving the cross, the ground where the golden-haired Gorosei, 5 elders was smashed, a formation rose up, and the azure light continued to shine, and the thunder column was unexpectedly thrown. Disintegrated in an instant. Boy, don't underestimate people. The short Gorosei, 5 elders, the black energy gathered into a giant hammer in his hand. When he hit the black sickle, a terrifying ripple swept across the sky instantly. The black sickle was shaken away, and then he and the curly hair the old man whistled towards Zhang Yang together. Bound Road 992 Ban Bankai. In an instant, Zhang Yang pinched his finger and pointed to the ground. Since Zhang Yang's body surface, black mist continued to permeate. Once the 9 black pillars formed by the gathering of spiritual energy were formed, they followed the footsteps of the black mist and shot towards the ground. Boom boom boom. It was also at this moment that a swastika-shaped stone in the sky quickly suppressed it. When the black mist came around the golden-haired Gorosei, 5 elders, it suddenly turned into a black cloth and wrapped his figure like a cocoon. Then, the 9 black pillars directly it was inserted into various parts of his body, and at the same time, the swastika stone smashed down. Everything only happened in an instant, but at this moment, the other 2 Gorosei, 5 elders took advantage of the moment when Zhang Yang started, and the cross and the black hammer slammed into Zhang Yang's back. Puff. The blood gushed down. Zhang Yang spat out a few mouthfuls of black blood, turned into a black shadow and smashed towards the ground, but at the same time, Zhang Yang's voice reached their ears. Black Yan 9 Demons Formation. The expressions of the 2 of them changed, and the next moment they saw a black sea of fire rising from the ground, and 9 giant black pillars fell from the sky. Chapter 206 Route. Marshal, the big thing is bad, because the door of justice was split open before. Now a large number of the forces of the world government have moved towards Marineford. Whitebeard and the other big pirates, Zephyr, Long and others were talking about something in the conference room, but at a certain moment, the phone bug in front of Zephyr rang. This anxious voice made everyone stunned. With a gloomy face, Zephyr said to the phone bug, "What is the large number of troops? Specifically, that aspect." "The total force is at least 400,000, under the responsibility of CP0, CP1 CP9 are all dispatched, and there are also humanoid weapons made by the world government, roughly estimated to be at least 20, and there are also some famous New World pirates, Charlotte Linlin and others." Quote, "There are countless fleets, countless fortresses." Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that the world government wanted to defeat them in one fell swoop this time. The Revolutionary Army assembles. Marine Overall Collection. The Whitebeard Pirates assemble. Golden Lion Pirate Fleet assembled. Happened to Marineford, Zhang Yang did not know, was the most important order given by the Gorosei, 5 elders before they left. The black fire rose, and the 9 giant pillars slammed into the coast with a bang. Damn! The golden-haired Gorosei, 5 elders were wrapped in black cloth, and black pillars were inserted into various parts of his body, and the most deadly thing was the swastika-shaped stone that fell from the sky. No matter what he did at this moment, it was difficult to break free, and it was at this time, he felt an aura of death rushing towards him. His eyes were dumbfounded, the fear in his eyes deepened, and he struggled more and more. Boom! The 2 Gorosei, 5 elders watched this shocking scene. Even if they wanted to save them, their intuition told them that even if they were saved, they might even lose their lives. Suddenly, a loud bang rang out. The black pillar exploded, and it was here, in their perception, that the blonde Gorosei, 5 elders had no breath. "If you're not careful, I'm afraid some of them will die." When Zhang Yang's figure smashed into this sea of fire, it seemed to merge into one. Without any harm to him, it turned into a black mist, and it was suspended in midair. When he sneered, he looked at the 2 Gorosei, 5 elders with blood-red eyes. Gorosei, 5 elders didn't expect the 4 of them to snipe this man, and he actually killed 2 of them. At this moment, although they were furious, there was a trace of fear in their eyes. They knew that only the 2 of them could do nothing. Keep fighting. And the result of continuing is only one. Die. Taking a deep look at this figure like a god of death, the only 2 remaining Gorosei, 5 elders looked at each other, and the curly-haired Gorosei, 5 elders waved the cross, and there was a transparent golden gate between them and Zhang Yang. And then the next moment, without any hesitation, the momentum of the whole body burst out, and burst into the distance. "I still want to run away." Zhang Yang chuckled lightly, and his eyes looked at the 2 figures with mockery. "Since you are here, I will do what I say today. I will take you all in one pot. After that, it's time to leave here." He didn't care at all about the giant door that blocked him in front of him, and Zhang Yang's body directly penetrated through it. Although most of the organs disappeared as if they were swallowed, they only recovered in an instant. The corners of his mouth seemed to chant. Everything stopped flowing, as if time had been frozen. And the 2 Gorosei, 5 elders who escaped were also at this moment. Their figures slammed, and their faces changed greatly when they suddenly discovered that their bodies were all imprisoned. If they really wanted to go on like this, they could only die. The faces of the 2 were hideous, and then their expressions both showed a touch of firmness. At this moment, the short Gorosei, 5 elders' body suddenly began to swell, and with a bang, he spat out a mouthful of blood with the remains of his internal organs, and then the figure rushed out as if breaking the restraint. And at this moment, the curly-haired old man's wings exploded, and he also spat out a mouthful of blood with the remains of his internal organs, and charged forward. "I wouldn't think that would hold me back either." Zhang Yang let out a sigh, and at this moment, the sound that was faster than Shunbu broke out. When the afterimages like black mist continued to appear, Zhang Yang's real body had disappeared, and the entire sky was like an animation. "Damn, he's too fast." The short Gorosei, 5 elders cursed, and both of them flew towards them aimlessly. "Sooner or later they will be caught up." "Go to Marineford." The curly-haired old man murmured. "In Marineford we have a chance to escape." Zhang Yang watched the 2 people change direction and couldn't help but stunned. but when he noticed the direction, he sneered. So far, I still plan to run. At this moment, in front of Marineford's house, there is a large fleet of world government fleets. As for the figures, it is even more dense and shocking. There are even 20 humanoids hovering around the world, overlooking the various pirates, revolutionary army and marine gathered below. Zephyr, you colluded with the pirates. For the sake of your hard work over the years, I will give you a chance to surrender with Marine. This time, the CP0 commander of the unified army, standing on the boat in charge, shouted. At least it's better than working with those nasty Gorosei, 5 elders. Zephyr snorted coldly. I know you are relying on Zhang Yang, but I'm afraid now, he has died in that country, ha ha ha. As everyone knows, what the CP0 chief said surprised everyone on Zephyr's side. Could it be that the rest of the Gorosei, 5 elders went to snipe for publicity? CP0 laughed when he saw their expressions. He opened his mouth and was about to say something when he saw 2 flowing arrows appearing in the sky, but the next moment they appeared in everyone's sight. It was the 2 Gorosei, 5 elders with bloodstains all over their faces, although CP0 was a little stunned by their appearance, but after thinking about it, they knew that they had experienced a fierce battle before, and laughed. Now, what do you think? Is there any chance of winning? Without publicity, you are nothing. Everyone looked at the 2 Gorosei, 5 elders, their faces were ugly, and their eyes were dimmed for a while. Could it be that Zhang Yang is dead? Chapter 207 The Year of the God of Death. All troops, leave and attack, take Marineford. The 2 Gorosei, 5 elders appeared in surprise, with anxious expressions, and suddenly gave an order without the slightest hesitation. At the same time, the 2 of them landed directly and mixed into the crowd. Both sides were puzzled because Gorosei, 5 elders gave orders in such a hurry, but Gorosei, 5 elders were the top leaders after all. As soon as these words came out, there were roars from the world government side, and the sound of the battery moving in an endless stream. And the 3 parties of the Marine Pirate Revolutionary Army are also solemn, and when they make a roar, they are ready to fight at any time. I said you guys, you were used as spearmen by these 2 old things, and you didn't even notice. Just as the 2 sides confronted each other, and the next moment the battle of 500,000 to 600,000 people was about to break out, a voice that was not loud, but which was clearly heard by everyone, rang out, followed by a pause. I'll just say, how could the boss be defeated? The other party is an immortal old man who has already entered the Lois. Enel and the others were also stunned for a moment, and then burst into laughter. They could naturally hear the publicity's voice. Damn, how can it come so fast? The faces of the 2 Gorosei, 5 elders who were in the crowd at the moment were gloomy, and the next moment, a roar broke out. Quick! Attack! Whoever hesitates, will be dealt with by military law. The army of the world government was stunned for a moment, but when they heard the military law, everyone swallowed and ignored the previous voice. The battle is over. Boom, boom, boom. Kill. The army of the world government was dispatched first, and the artillery batteries on the warships were constantly bursting with pitch-black shells. The number was so fast that it seemed that the scalp was tingling. Even at this moment, the 20 androids entrenched in the sky, with their palms and mouths all converging with dazzling rays of light, swept away towards Marineford in an instant, and the terrifying power caused explosions one after another, dust and smoke flying. The powerful energy makes all of them suffer, regardless of enemy or foe. It seems that to stop this battle, the only way to kill the 2 old men is to kill them first. This voice sounded again, but because of the orders of the Gorosei, 5 elders, the actions of the world government could not stop, but this did not prevent the 2 Gorosei, 5 elders in the crowd from preparing to flee. But at the next moment, this sky suddenly had black fog afterimages that kept appearing, like nightmare, and then they saw a figure in a black robe with 2 ghost fires appearing in the sky. Boss. Death. I knew you wouldn't die. This form of publicity has only been seen by the Alliance Army on Marine's side. Everyone else was stunned when they saw this figure, but because of the war, they didn't pay too much attention. When Zhang Yang turned into a black mist and ran through the crowd, he quickly shot towards the two Gorosei, 5 elders, and the sound was much faster than them, but he came to them in an instant, blocking the way for the two of them to go. I said, you should live enough to live. With a sneer, Zhang Yang's dry palms turned into claws, pinching the curly-haired Gorosei, 5 elders, throats like pincers, but at this moment, the short Gorosei, 5 elders pointed forward, and a black light beam suddenly appeared. Passing through Zhang Yang's outstretched arm, it finally smashed into the crowd, causing an explosion. Because of the light beam, Zhang Yang's arm was directly smashed and turned into smoke, but it only regenerated in an instant. When the black sickle was violently held in his hand, Zhang Yang cut it straight ahead. This sickle, the curly-haired old man could not escape, even if he laid a transparent defensive wall in front of him within a few seconds, but the black sickle passed through easily, and then left a trail on his body. Chopping marks, no blood. Just the next moment, the curly-haired Gorosei, 5 elders fell to the ground, losing their vitality. It's your turn. Zhang Yang looked at this short man, and he was also looking at Zhang Yang, swallowing a mouthful of saliva. Damn. How is it possible? Zhang Yang, even if I die, I will pull you back. Knowing that he could not escape, Gorosei, 5 elders stared at Zhang Yang in front of him, and his body quickly began to swell, and an extremely terrifying force seemed to be brewing. Boom. The explosion that shattered the ground and shook the world, and happened with a bang, as if it devoured all life at this moment, but it's not the case. Have they all perished? In that explosion, almost no one was injured, but a few figures disappeared. I know, those people are all the members of the Death God pirates, including the Death God. It was only half a month away from the explosion. After the explosion, just as the citizens said, only Zhang Yang and his group disappeared without a trace. However, all the Gorosei, 5 elders fell, and the group of dragons was leaderless for a while. In addition, the follow-up matters were not explained by the Gorosei, 5 elders before their death, and their marine was powerful. The chief of CP0 was an extremist and was killed by Zephyr on the spot. After that, the world government surrendered as a whole. A month later, a decision that affected the world situation shocked the world. This was a live broadcast. The 3 people who attended were Marine Marshal Zephyr, Revolutionary Army Leader Long, and Pirates Representative Whitebeard. Today, after all, is a special day. The Marine Revolutionary Army and the Pirates will unite to reorganize the world government. From now on, there will be no such thing as 3, 6 or 9, let alone the creator Tenryubito. Freedom will be the theme of this era. Tenryubito in the Holy Land Marineford was driven out by the newly established World Government Coalition forces and released a large number of slaves. Immediately after, the promulgation of new decrees for peace and freedom made the people excited. Pirates have not disappeared, they are still galloping on the sea, looking for unknown seas, dreaming to become a new generation of One Piece King of Pirates, Luffy, Zoro, Ace, etc. A group of new generation pirates also entered the sea. Nami, where do you think Zhang Yang, the god of death, is now? I really want to see him. And in memory of Zhang Yang, this period is called the Year of Death. 208 Falling from the Sky. Just when Nami was talking about where Zhang Yang was going, she didn't know that Zhang Yang and the rest of the people were affected by the explosion. Those people were distorted and disintegrated by space one after another, and nothing was left. Zhang Yang, who was involved in it, saw this. Fan Xi naturally knew the power of the explosion. This dead old man, he's not doing good deeds when he's dead. Zhang Yang scolded inwardly, but still launched a stern attack with Ruo Ren Ruo Huo. After this blow, Whitebeard and the others had to give up their strength for 3 points. They were easily disintegrated by time and space. Time and space debris, because once it hits it, it will be a hole, and Zhang Yang doesn't have the regeneration ability of the guy just now. However, no matter how careful you are, there will be mistakes. Zhang Yang's sturdy body is inserted by a seemingly unpleasant fragment. The impact of that moment is like going back 10,000 years. Zhang Yang seems to see his own era around, but not allowing him to be stunned. Hundreds of different fragments flew towards Zhang Yang quickly. If it were a few slow fragments, Zhang Yang might be able to handle it, but now hundreds of fast fragments are shooting towards him at the speed of light. Zhang Yang, you must die. Bury me with you. It was the elder who had blown himself up who said this. His words had already started to go a little crazy, and even the fragments flew wildly along with him. Zhang Yang sighed. It was not that he wanted to give up, but that he had to fight. Bankai 110 forms. Zhang Yang is still going backwards with that shard, but those hundreds of shards are faster, penetrating Zhang Yang in just a few seconds. Resurrection. I saw Zhang Yang's killing intent after he read it out. He held the flowing blade in his hand like a fire and slashed it with one knife. The chaotic blade kept tearing the surrounding space-time, and the entire space-time began to crumble. Although his attack dispelled most of the fragmentation attacks, there were still a few fragments that collided like headless flies. At the moment when the entire space-time collapsed, Zhang Yang's feet were still hit by several fragments. Before Zhang Yang's painful cry, a turbulent flow spit out from the black space-time and immediately sucked Zhang Yang into the turbulent space-time, and no one would know him. Where did you go? A 12-year-old child was lying in a large pit after a huge puff of smoke, the sudden startling sent birds fleeing across the forest. After the smoke dissipated for a while, Zhang Yang, who was lying on the ground, struggled to open his eyes, looked around slowly, sat up with his hands on the ground, and moved his eyes only to find that there were several iron scraps on his body, fixed to his bones. He is struggling to sit up now. He knows that he has suffered such a degree of injury that he has struggled to even protect himself, and the flame of the Taiku sword in Zhang Yang's hand is also looming in his hand, as if he was also affected by his injury. Suddenly, a slight crisp sound came into Zhang Yang's ears. Zhang Yang knew that someone was coming over the forest. He calculated that he was still about 1,000 meters away from him, and was walking towards him. Am I being discovered? Although Zhang Yang is very weak now, his senses have not been affected much. No, I can't fight them head-on now, and I don't know where this place is now, so I'd better hide first. Zhang Yang thought in his heart, gritted his teeth, moved his body with his hands, and walked forward in a prostrate shape. There was a tree trunk in front of him. Zhang Yang rushed behind the tree at the current speed. The dots spread, and those people should have come for this pit. He quietly hid behind the tree to see that those people had already arrived in front of the big pit, and only then did he see a total of 4 people on the opposite side, and their attire was a uniform black cloth covering their mouths, all in black, with a rectangular headgear that resembles a logo. Zhang Yang exclaimed in his heart, this TM is a ninja. And TM is a Naruto. But one thing that made Zhang Yang speechless was that the group of people walked to the pit vigilantly. After a black-haired man jumped down, he picked up something. I wipe. Isn't that my Taiku knife? Just as Zhang Yang made a little noise, he was gagged by the handman. Because Zhang Yang was too concerned about the Taiku knife being taken away, he lost his defense. He didn't know who was behind him, and now Zhang Yang, who was completely weak, had nothing to do. Is this time crossing going to die? No, I'm not reconciled. When Zhang Yang was thinking about what to do, the big hand was taken away. Shish, be quiet and don't disturb them. Zhang Yang took a few breaths and looked back. This man had white hair, but he was not old at all. The attire on his face was the same as those of those people, except that he slightly pulled up to cover his other eye, and his clothes were different from theirs. Same. But at this time, Zhang Yang was too surprised to speak. Isn't this TM Kakashi? Seeing Zhang Yang's shocked look, Kakashi lowered his voice and said, you know me. How could Zhang Yang, a transmigrant, tell the truth? He wouldn't believe it when he said it. He simply lied to him and said, you look like my dead uncle, that's why I watched it for so long. Zhang Yang looked at him with a rogue look in his heart at this time. What can you do with me? Kakashi didn't say much, and only heard those people behind the tree say, withdraw. Kakashi breathed a sigh of relief, and by the way held Zhang Yang, who was about to catch up. "What are you doing? Are you going to die?" Kakashi spoke without any expression fluctuations, but there was a doubt. "Uncle, they stole my things, very important things, they must be taken back." Zhang Yang knew that he would die if he caught up, so he might as well pull Kakashi to help him get back the Taiku knife, but Zhang Yang's plan was in vain, and Kakashi let go of his hands, hugged his chest and said, "Go if you want. I won't stop you." Zhang Yang looked at Kakashi with a relaxed face as if he was deflated. "But things have to be taken back." Zhang Yang had to go by himself, but now there is no one to help him. With a thud, Zhang Yang fell to the ground in response. Kakashi's knife behind him gradually retracted, and he said with a speechless expression, "I am a person who likes to do good things so much, you can't die, hee." Zhang Yang was lying on the ground with a black eye in his mouth and passed out after reading the mouth shape of, "You, sir." Looking at the big pit, Kakashi knew in his heart that this person is not simple, and the knife that those people picked up is not inferior to the tailed beast jade that the nine-tailed runaway saw from the chakra inside. It is already very powerful, and it is strange that this kid is seriously injured now, and there are still so many chakras. When he recovers, I am afraid that even Naruto's chakra will not be able to match it. Kakashi thought about it for a long time, and finally thought that he only needed to seal the chakra in his body. To be on the safe side, Kakashi decided to use the symbiotic seal technique. He understood that this person is not simple. To restrain him, he must use this kind of seal. Unless I can't stand the chakra of the caster or I die, otherwise the seal will not be lifted. Alas, this is also for the safety of the village, don't blame me. Kakashi made a seal on his hand and shouted, "Chakra seal symbiosis. Conclude." It was already dark, and Kakashi got up from the ground and grabbed Zhang Yang, who was still in a coma, and walked to Konoha village out of breath. Chapter 209 Recovery. A remote warehouse located by the river in Konoha village was hit by the hot sun rays at noon into the window. Kakashi leisurely took the water and washed his face, guessing that the kid was about to wake up. It turned out that Kakashi didn't take Zhang Yang back to Konoha village yesterday, but took him to an abandoned warehouse by the river, because he was worried that if such an unknown person threatened Konoha village, it would be troublesome. Having said that, Kakashi decided to find out the truth of this person, who called himself a nosy, so Kakashi pushed the door helplessly and walked into the warehouse. Pain. Zhang Yang slowly opened his eyes and screamed as he twisted his neck. "Yo, you're awake, you can still recover from such an injury yesterday, haha, it's not easy." Kakashi was tinkering with something on the other side of the warehouse and said without looking back. "It's you. What do you mean by attacking me?" Zhang Yang said suspiciously. In fact, he knew that Kakashi was not such a person, but he couldn't help but say it. "Oh, yesterday if I hadn't rescued you. Hey, there's nothing to eat, wait for me, don't move around, I'll go catch fish and eat right away." Kakashi started talking to himself halfway through speaking, not taking the publicity's words as a threat at all. Zhang Yang couldn't say anything. Now he doesn't know when he will recover, and he can't go anywhere like this. Anyway, Kakashi didn't seem to be malicious, so he didn't speak anymore and watched Kakashi go out empty-handed. Seeing him go out empty-handed, Zhang Yang felt very puzzled and said, "Don't you use tools to catch fish?" Kakashi waved his hand before going out and said, "Don't worry, just have something to eat." Zhang Yang felt suspicious, but there was nothing he could do. It was impossible for him to stand up and grab his collar and say he was lying, and it was even more impossible to follow him. Now Zhang Yang is struggling to even open his eyes. Oh, when will it recover? Zhang Yang closed his eyes and felt the wisps of sunlight radiating heat on his body, which gradually merged into the whole body, as if the whole body was beginning to be full of vitality. Zhang Yang didn't hate the current state, at least he could stay away from the disputes and enjoy a quiet time. It will be such a time, as if to forget the troubles and pain. Rachel. The drowsy Zhang Yang was awakened by this sudden sound, accompanied by a harsh electric sound. This is... Zhang Yang suddenly opened his eyes and sat up suddenly. What surprised Zhang Yang more than the outside was that his wound was healed, and there was no scar on the outside, and now there was only a ray of sunlight left on his body. Zhang Yang understood. It must be the fruit that he should not eat in the world of One Piece, King of Pirates. TMD is only in effect now, it's not. Zhang Yang got out of bed slowly, and found that his feet were almost better, so he hurried out to see what happened, but just as he was about to approach the door, a dark shadow appeared, and Zhang Yang, who was running, had no time to brake, and he was about to collide on that figure. At this time, the figure also seemed to have discovered Zhang Yang, and avoided the collision with Zhang Yang at a tricky angle, and light penetrated between the flashes. Zhang Yang can see clearly. This person is Kakashi. Behind him is a strange fish 3 times bigger than himself. Zhang Yang, who has just recovered his body, has not adjusted his balance. His body is completely out of control, and he suddenly falls out of the door. In addition, Kakashi looked at Zhang Yang, who fell to the ground with a bewildered expression, and asked, "Yo, I didn't expect you to get better so quickly, but running around as soon as you get better doesn't make you worry at all." "Your uncle." Zhang Yang cursed again secretly in his heart. Kakashi went into the room and put down the fish, and then came out and pulled Zhang Yang's hand to send him to lie down, but Zhang Yang didn't think so, and saw Zhang Yang's back elbow ready to hit Kakashi's head, although Zhang Yang had just recovered. "I didn't adjust my body, but this blow was undoubtedly a blow that exhausted all my strength. I didn't dare to say anything else, and no one in the pirate world would dare to take the next step." In fact, Zhang Yang wanted to stun Kakashi and run away, otherwise it would be harder and harder to find his knife. How could Kakashi, who is already a Junin, be succeeded by a person who has just recovered? Although he was careless, Kakashi's reaction ability is still good. His palms turned into electricity, with a faster impact than Zhang Yang. Hit Zhang Yang's arms. Zhang Yang, who was originally confident, froze for a moment when he saw this palm to electricity move, but with this effort, Lakey had already reached 20 meters to shoot Zhang Yang with his elbow still in the air. Zhang Yang coughed dryly, and his chest was very restless. He knew that Kakashi didn't want to kill him, but used 10% of his strength to fight it out and let Zhang Yang's body suffer evenly. But Zhang Yang had to go, or he wouldn't see any traces when it rained. Thinking like this, Zhang Yang's body began to gather all his strength in his hands. When Kakashi saw a large amount of chakra gathered on his palm, he suddenly felt that things were not good, and the symbiotic seal he set up began to feel dangerous. If he didn't restrain himself, the chakra could collapse and leak at any time. Will die from chakra depletion. No, he must be stopped. Kakashi's hand began to form a seal. If others saw the speed of Kakashi's seal, they would know why he was called a genius. Kakashi completed more than 100 gestures in just 5 seconds. At the same time, Zhang Yang's idea is to rely on this energy to jump to the big pit yesterday, but in Kakashi's view, he looks like he is going to fight. Both sides were ready, and I saw Zhang Yang lift his charged big hand to the ground and fly out instantly, and Kakashi also restrained Zhang Yang's chakra for a moment. When he flew out, Zhang Yang's power suddenly disappeared. Without the stamina, Zhang Yang secretly screamed bad. Kakashi looked at the direction he flew out, and wiped the sweat from his forehead. Shish, I still didn't catch up, but it's a good fortune among misfortunes. Looking in the direction where Zhang Yang had fallen, Kakashi was about to go to find people, and after walking a few steps, he suddenly realized that it was the direction of Konoha village. Oops, if something goes wrong, you have to go back quickly. Kakashi jumped to a big tree and looked at it. After determining the direction, he continued to shuttle through the woods, and the surrounding leaves were whirling at this speed. On the other side, Zhang Yang fell into a bathroom and screamed. Zhang Yang touched his head, stood up slowly, looked around, and found that all around were girls with their breasts wrapped and naked. Although Zhang Yang was upright, he was still at a loss. Just when he was speechless, a short-haired girl wrapped her chest towards Zhang Yang. When he came, Zhang Yang was thinking about how to get out at this time, and suddenly a pair of hands came over and grabbed Zhang Yang's collar and cursed. 210 Nongfu Spring Chakra Disguise. You idiot. I don't care who you are. If you dare to peek at a girl's bath like this, you will die for me. Xiaoying looked at Zhang Yang angrily and raised her fist. Zhang Yang wanted to explain something, and Hinata, who was behind, said loudly, Xiaoying, don't. How could the angry Xiaoying listen so much, and directly sent Zhang Yang to the sky with a profound righteous fist. Kakashi had just arrived at the women's bathhouse when he saw Zhang Yang flying out again, with a black line on his head, as if he understood something. It will take a few days to fly out now. Alas, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Kakashi reluctantly left the bathhouse with one hand covering his head, and the crowd watching the fun was also reprimanded by Sakura. Zhang Yang, who had been floating for 2 days, was blown down by a sudden strong wind. Zhang Yang dared to say that this was the 3rd time he was thrown in this world. Why was his luck better before? Could it be that the old man had other attributes when he exploded? Zhang Yang stood up and patted the sand on his buttocks. At first glance, the entire area was like a desert. Zhang Yang instantly knew where it was. With such an obvious geographical feature, he came to the country of sand. Zhang Yang has to sigh. Xiaoying's strange power is indeed daunting. Next time, I don't want to provoke this tigress again. Now I'll find out how to get out. Want to find Gaara first and then be a soldier under him to learn, like when he joined Marine on the island. Okay, let's do it like this. Anyway, it's far away from Konoha village. It's better to get up step by step and retrieve your Taiku knife, which has half of your own abilities. Yes, it should be called chakra in this world. Bar. Just thinking about it while walking, the sun soon evaporated a large part of the water in Zhang Yang's body, and he didn't eat anything. Zhang Yang began to sweat, and his footsteps slowly became heavy. Suddenly, there was a sudden change under his feet, and the sand seemed to have life, and he wanted to catch Zhang Yang. However, he had already sensed that someone's Zhang Yang had been prepared, and jumped up to a sand dune not far away. Which country's spy are you? Dare to break into our sand country's territory? A figure slowly rose from the sand, until after it was completely shaped by the sand, a weak wind blew past, and the sand on the surface had been blown away to reveal a human figure. On one side, Zhang Yang couldn't help but be amazed. It was the first time he had seen this kind of ninjutsu with his own eyes, but he also answered with his mouth. If you are about to blurt out the words, you have to close, because at this moment, there is a better way for Zhang Yang to not waste time. Sand Ninja saw that Zhang Yang didn't answer, and felt that he must be an enemy, and he couldn't be allowed to seize the opportunity, but he didn't know, now that Zhang Yang has fully adapted to his body, such a little guy has the same strength as those pirates. Of course, he must a little stronger than ordinary pirates, after all, he can ninjutsu. Sandbound. Sand Ninja's hand was as fast as he said, and the seal was formed immediately. Zhang Yang didn't mean to resist, because even if he couldn't use chakra for the time being, he could easily win with his body's speed and strength. I saw that the sand net easily wrapped Zhang Yang, and the sand country ninja smiled, and the hand began to quickly form a seal. Golden thorns. After the recitation, the sand ninja raised his empty hand, and the surrounding sand turned into long, hard thorns floating into the air. There were about 40 thorns. As a Chunin, he already felt that he could kill Zhang Yang. His face made a going gesture with disdain, and all the sharp knives were dispatched in an instant, stabbing at Zhang Yang, and an explosion sent the sand flying into the sky. The sand country ninja turned around and prepared to go back and continue to guard without thinking. He turned around and left a sentence. Too weak, you are still pretending not to speak, cut tilde. I didn't expect you to talk freely, look who I am, hee hee. The sand ninja hurriedly looked back, and in front of him was the face of Zhang Yang. The terrified sand ninja knew that he had encountered a tough stubble, and immediately stepped back a few steps to search for the flares on his body, preparing to send a signal flare to call for support, but Zhang Yang, his big hands had already pinched his neck. I'm sorry, borrow your clothes for me to wear. Zhang Yang exerted force on his hand, and the sand ninja immediately fainted. It's you who is vulnerable. Zhang Yang laughed and took off his clothes and put them on. I have to say, it's quite suitable, but next, Zhang Yang will send him thousands of miles away, in a sea. As for whether he can survive or not, it depends on himself. Just when Zhang Yang, who grabbed the ninja's body, was about to throw it away, Zhang Yang seemed to think of something and put the ninja down. It turned out that if Zhang Yang wanted to pretend to be this person and enter the country of sand, he had to know his name and part of his memory, otherwise he would be exposed. Oops, so he put a little chakra on his fingers and put it on the ninja's forehead. I wipe. This person is no longer there. Zhang Yang, who was exploring the memory of playing, couldn't help being surprised. How could Zhang Yang use this person's identity with a wry smile? After the discovery, I learned that this person is called Nongfu Spring. And what is even more surprising is his private life, more than a dozen lovers, each with an unusually large number of names, and he is also a supporter of the conspiracy of the Kingdom of Sand, and he is still unmarried. With such a huge and complicated relationship, Zhang Yang rubbed his head. Who the hell is this? But now there is no way to do it, just bite the bullet. A beautiful meteor, the ninja had disappeared. Zhang Yang clapped his hands. According to his memory, it was almost time to hand over the shift, and he had to quickly use the chakra disguise cheats that he had just found on him. The boy could still get this kind of thing in order to pick up girls. He didn't have time to think about it. He sat on the ground and began to condense chakra to change his face. At the same time, Kakashi, who was reading the little yellow book, felt Zhang Yang chakra's agitation, and quickly checked Zhang Yang's position. Is this direction the land of sand? Kakashi felt that this matter could no longer be concealed, so he walked to the office of the Hokage Elder Tsunade. Shenhuan-kun, I'm here to take over. Zhang Yang, who was still refining his last face, was interrupted. Once this technique is interrupted or distracted, he cannot continue. Otherwise, he will self-destruct his face, and Zhang Yang dare not continue. Anyway, it is almost the same. If you continue to sit by yourself, it will make people suspicious. Oh, okay. Zhang Yang stood up and turned to face the man. Zhang Yang searched his memory and said, Oh, Doug-kun, come on, let's just hand over. I saw Doug looking at Zhang Yang's face in disbelief, not caring what Zhang Yang said at all. 211 The beginning of restlessness. In such a tense atmosphere, it is easy for people to think wildly, and Zhang Yang immediately wondered if he was exposed. Is there something wrong with his face? Just when Zhang Yang felt that something was wrong and was ready to kill with one blow, Doug's surprised mouth slowly closed and said, Shenhuan-kun, when did you become so handsome? It's unbelievable, we only met yesterday. Ah. The heart that Zhang Yang mentioned was relieved, so he said with a guilty conscience, this is the ninjutsu I practiced that day. I didn't expect it to suddenly become like this today. Don't worry about it, haha. Zhang Yang laughed a few times with a guilty conscience, but Doug insisted on asking for the secret book, so Zhang Yang gave the chakra disguise to Doug because of the trouble. Entering the busy sand country, Zhang Yang is fortunate to have gotten rid of that troublesome ghost, because according to Shenhuan's memory, Doug is a villain who can't be seen by others. If he doesn't give him this secret, he may become handsome. After being discovered, I don't know how strong these people are, but I will definitely finish the game in the end. According to his memory, the alley on the east side of the street is Shenhuan's house. Zhang Yang walked into the alley and found a fat woman in front of him. She looked like a national beauty and heavenly fragrance. He looked at the woman with eyes, and after Zhang Yang walked over, the pedestrians dispersed, but he heard a talkative voice, whose orangutan ran out. It's scary. I didn't expect to be heard by this woman. The fat woman chased the pedestrians in a rage and shouted, You are the orangutan. Your whole family is the orangutan. How can you talk? The pedestrian said while escaping, Why are you standing at the door scaring you if you are not an orangutan? I'm here to find my brother Quan. The woman stopped suddenly, and when she looked back, a person sneaked in and just closed the door. Brother Quan, wait for me. After saying that, I couldn't care about the pedestrians, so I ran back and knocked on the door, but Zhang Yang would not say anything about gate of opening, because in my memory, this woman was obsessed with the beauty of mountain springs, and it was considered to be exhausted for 10 years when she met her. One of Shengquan's mistresses, now she only leaves when it gets dark, and Zhang Yang drags her tired body to sleep. What? Kakashi, why didn't you inform me earlier? Tsunade listened to Kakashi's report to her, and didn't sit up angrily to draw Kakashi. Hey, wait a minute, Tsunade-sama, calm down, I have sealed his chakra, and he can't make any trouble for the time being. Tsunade's anger subsided a little, but he still asked angrily, what should I do now? You can rest assured, the seal on my body can sense his position. I want to go out for a while and bring him back. Judging from his strength, this is also just in case to avoid a war in the ninja world, approve it. Tsunade heard that Kakashi was going out for a while, and asked worriedly, can you control him alone? Yo, when did you suddenly start caring about me? Kakashi jokingly joked, but he didn't expect Tsunade to be angry again. Get out of here. Kakashi jumped out in fright. Huh, it's dangerous, I don't want to get punched by him. The next day, Kakashi summoned Naruto, Sasuke, and Xiaoyun to explain that he was going out for a while, so that they would not cause trouble to the village. Cut, Naruto is the only one causing trouble. Sasuke looked away with disdain. Hey, you guy, don't think you're amazing, just wait until I learn ninjutsu and beat you up. Naruto retorted angrily. Naruto, enough is enough. Sakura yelled at Naruto and threatened with her fist. Naruto slumped instantly and said, I know, really. Kakashi couldn't help laughing at the three of them, and suddenly said to Naruto, by the way, Naruto, you go to Jiraiya to practice. When you come back, I hope you are better than Sasuke. Kakashi's last words were whispered to Naruto. Okay, everyone, I'm leaving. Bang! No one was injured or heard the sound of an explosion, but Zhang Yang, who was cultivating earnestly while sitting on the bed, could hear it clearly. This was an explosion inside his body. This time, Zhang Yang was so frightened that he hurriedly got up to check what was wrong with him, but after searching for a long time, he couldn't find anything wrong, so he sat down and started to think. I have to say that you still have to have a brain. If a person likes thinking more and more, it proves that he is slowly getting smarter. This is Zhang Yang's testimonial that he has traveled to these places these days. He has already found the problem. It was the air in him that had changed. Zhang Yang found that the air here was different from the air in the place where the pirates were. This air was a pure energy air, which meant that ordinary urbanites who did not have the power to bind chickens came here. After doing push-ups here for a few days, you will have a pair of strong muscles, and it will also change the way you breathe, and you can even reach the state of lower tolerance. No wonder one of the minions here is more powerful than the one in the pirate world, so that's how it is. But the chakra that Zhang Yang just mentioned began to be suppressed again. It's strange, this is the third time today, how can I be pressed down by a force as soon as I gather chakra? As everyone knows, Kakashi on the other side is also very hard. Sitting in a dense forest and suppressing the seal, the sweat on his head gradually came out, but fortunately, Zhang Yang gave up and continued to condense chakra, and Kakashi gasped. After a few moments, he lay on the ground looking at the sky and muttered to himself. If it goes on like this, I will die before it arrives. After confirming that no one was blocking the door, Zhang Yang quickly ran out of the door and mixed into the street like a thief, which made Zhang Yang feel at ease. Zhang Yang, who had just walked halfway, was picking things. Unexpectedly, the crowd suddenly crowded, and Zhang Yang was crowded by the crowd. After 10 minutes, Zhang Yang climbed out of the crowd. If I hadn't been able to gather my anger, I would have flown out a long time ago. After Zhang Yang decided to go back, he must check what happened. Unexpectedly, someone shouted in the direction of the crowd, the princess of the kingdom of sand chooses her husband and competes to recruit relatives. You must try your best, the opportunity is a rare opportunity. Zhang Yang, who just stood up, felt stupid in his heart. What is the situation? Naruto didn't develop like this, but if you think about it carefully, One Piece King of Pirates didn't develop that way. At least some details were developed towards Zhang Yang's choice of. This is a good opportunity. If you win, you can become the consort of the Kingdom of Sand and have more rights. In this way, you can find your own knife just around the corner. Zhang Yang clapped his hands and said, okay, just do it. Therefore, a public figure was also added to the army of registration. Chapter 212 Unexpected Harvest. Come here, sign up in order, don't jump in line. Several registration places with pergolas were crowded, and Zhang Yang, who had just arrived, could only be thousands of miles away from the crowd. Seeing so many people signing up is not the way to do it. What kind of old man and woman? There are few, and all of them come to sign up, for the sake of glory and wealth and a beautiful princess. Seeing this scene, a well-respected person in charge on the stage picked up the microphone and shouted loudly, "We will invite elites from various countries to participate in your trial this time. If you are injured or die, you will be responsible for the consequences. Participate." Hearing the possibility of death, he scared away more than half of the people at once. Except for the old, weak, sick and disabled, the rest were basically men, and the long queue became short and lean. After a while, Zhang Yang was lined up, and the applicants in front of him had begun to show tired expressions. They just asked a few names and addresses, and asked Zhang Yang to come back tomorrow morning to participate in the preliminaries. The people today don't seem to be very powerful. Except for a few tyrannical genin, it seems that no one can marry the princess, alas. After Zhang Yang walked a short distance, he heard the staff at the registration office complaining there. After listening to Zhang Yang, he walked to Shengquan's house without looking back, because this time he was going to be famous. It was getting late, and Kakashi, who had not been on the road for a long time, arrived at a small town attached to the Land of Sand, and there was still a day's journey away from the Land of Sand, so Kakashi went on to find a good place to stay in the town and inquired by the way. Check out the information. What? The Kingdom of Sand is going to hold a pro-Ray meeting. Whoever wins will have the princess and the power and wealth. A man sitting in a bar and a few surrounding men said excitedly while drinking. Haha, how can such a good thing be without my sand caravan? I will set off for the Land of Sand tomorrow, in time. After that, a few people started clinking glasses and drinking very vigorously. Kakashi decided to hitch a ride to the Land of Sand tomorrow, so he also went back to sleep and waited for the caravan the next day. On the other hand, Zhang Yang, who went back, was entangled by another lover. That was Shengquan's eighth lover. He was ugly but kind. In order not to hurt this kind woman, Zhang Yang directly used chakra to erase her love for her. Mountain Springs memory. That's fine. After Zhang Yang removed his hand, he was about to turn around and leave. Unexpectedly, there was a sudden coldness behind him. Zhang Yang dodged and was not in a hurry. He was hit by the flying Kuwu, and Kuwu deeply stabbed Zhang Yang on the shoulder. After reluctantly looking back, there was another person behind him. This person was shown in a black cloak and was as tall as 1.8 meters. When Zhang Yang wanted to move, the person on the opposite side raised his eyes. That's it. Shaking round eyes. Zhang Yang was taken aback. Since he arrived in this world, he has never seen anyone with a wheel eye, and now this person is likely to be a member of the Uchiha family. Ha ha ha, kid, you are a threat in this competition. I advise you to hurry up. Get out, or you will die here. The man in black said to Zhang Yang with a threatening tone, but who is Zhang Yang, who has seen so many ups and downs? Can this little injury scare him? I saw Zhang Yang unplug the kunai, slowly turned around and stood up, laughing wildly. Ha 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 ha, if you dare to hurt me, I will kill you on the spot, believe it or not. The black-clothed man's wheel shaker turned a few times, and said contemptuously, is it just you? You even have one of my fingers. As soon as the voice fell, Zhang Yang's figure flashed, but in 0.5 seconds he appeared in front of the man in black and charged with a palm. Lakey shot. The man in black was instantly beaten to the back and hung on the wall of an alley, scattered around. A lot of stone slag, a trace scraped on the ground extended to the man in black. The power is evident. It's more than just touching your finger now. Zhang Yang's contemptuous counterattack angered the man in black. He saw that the black man also showed his strength and instantly transformed the surrounding space into water, while he himself hovered high in the air. Zhang Yang knew that he had fallen into his illusion. For a while, I couldn't think of how to crack it, so I had to fall into the sea. But how could the man in black let him crack as he wished? The sea instantly became choppy, which made Zhang Yang have no room to think. Looking at the way you are now, I'd better finish it quickly. It's also your honor to have a big move for you. Ha ha ha, go to hell. As soon as the words fell, there were several giant sharks in the sea, which were dozens of times bigger than any sharks Zhang Yang had seen, and all the sharks were biting at Zhang Yang for a while. After a while of blood staining, the shark dissipated and the illusion was lifted. The man in black slowly fell from the air to the ground. Ha ha ha, I'm really over the top. After I've dealt with you, I'll be more relieved. Suddenly a hand grabbed the neck of the man in black, and the man in black was startled for a moment. Who is it? The moment your shark was bitten, I knew how the illusion was broken. The answer is that the heart is like water, right, the Uchiha clan. The man in black's face was itchy with anger, but he had to admit to being pinched by his neck. He suddenly thought that there was another big move. As long as he hit it, he would definitely die, so he slowly said, you let it go. How do I? In exchange I give you a magic weapon to win. Zhang Yang knew that he was making a bad idea again, but he still acted with him, put down the hand holding his neck, and motioned him to take it out. I saw the man in black took out a Rinnegan eyeball, handed it to Zhang Yang, and said, this is the Rinnegan found in the family cemetery by the elders of the previous generations of the Uchiha clan. Those who have obtained this Rinnegan can be immune to all mental attacks, and can remembering the moves others have used will always be remembered. Please accept them with a smile. Quote. Zhang Yang was a little moved. After all, when he first came to this place, he only lost an ancient sword on his body. Now that he has this thing, he has confidence wherever he goes. But on another thought, how could he possibly give me such a good thing? There must be ghosts in it, so Zhang Yang decided to do it. Okay, of course I want something as good as yours. In exchange, I'll spare you not to die. The moment he took the eyeball, Zhang Yang saw a faint smile on his face. But Zhang Yang had been prepared for a long time, and he didn't believe that a small eyeball could turn the world upside down. The moment he held it in his hand, the eyeball emitted a strange black light. Zhang Yangji felt that the little chakra left in his body was completely absorbed by the eyeball, and Zhang Yang immediately pretended to be sucked very painfully, but in black clothes. People don't know that the chakra of Zhang Yang can't be condensed at all, and there is no chakra in his body at all. Chapter 213 Participating in the General Assembly. Ha ha ha, go to hell, this eyeball will absorb endlessly as long as it needs chakra. The more chakra, the greater the pain. Even if I don't kill you, you will be attracted by that powerful attraction together with flesh and blood. Sucked dry. At this time, Zhang Yang, who pretended to be in pain on the ground, understood. Although the effects of his just now were true, once he touched this eyeball, he would be swallowed by chakra. It's a dangerous trick. Fortunately, I didn't forcefully improve chakra, otherwise I'll explain it here today. Zhang Yang was shocked in his heart, and then secretly rejoiced. This thing already knew what was going on, and he had no cards, so Zhang Yang stopped feigning pain, and the arrogant smile of the man in black stopped at the moment when Zhang Yang stood up. You, how could you? Impossible. The man in black sat on the ground and said, impossible, absolutely impossible, without chakra, you can still use such a fast fighting technique, only that person can. Seeing the man in black who collapsed in front of him talking to himself, Zhang Yang didn't say much. He charged his palms and slammed it down, and the man in black's self-talk ended with a fall to the ground. I'll take your things, let's give you a ride. After speaking, Zhang Yang walked away, and Kakashi over there also felt a trace of chakra in Zhang Yang's body being sucked away, which made Kakashi worried. Because chakras can be shared except medical ninjas, the chakras of other ninjas are released by squeezing the gas, but the situation of Zhang Yang is sucked up by things, and Kakashi stayed up all night, thinking of leaving for the land of sand as soon as tomorrow is approaching. In the morning, the town was cold and windy, and there were not many pedestrians on the road, but a caravan gathered outside the town and was about to rush to the land of sand. Everyone, give me some energy, we have to hurry to the land of sand, my young master wants to enter the contest for the princess. The group was speechless on the way, but no one thought that Kakashi would hide in the luggage behind, which gave Kakashi, who had not slept all night, time to make up for sleep. The order has been decided. Please take a break for the contestants and call your names before you play. Yesterday, the person in charge had changed into a clean outfit and shouted with a loudspeaker on the field. Zhang Yang had been to this place a long time ago, and it was not until there were more and more people that he started to announce the order. There are a total of 24 rounds of competition today. This time it is a preliminaries. Those who come to the preliminaries will be eligible to participate in the official competition tomorrow. The man held the horn and started shouting again, and he stayed in the middle of the venue. This Roman-shaped building, the venue is below, and the person in charge shouted in the middle. And sitting on the high platform is Sand Shadow from the Kingdom of Sand and his daughter. The next few are Sand Shadow's son, Gaara, who is more outstanding. The others are elders. The new change, one person waved the white flag up and down, the person in charge saw it and picked up the horn and started shouting. The first game, Doug vs. Pomir, please play. Doug is actually here, is he really a guy who loves to join in the fun? Zhang Yang stared at the two people on the field without thinking, and the person in charge had already walked to the high platform, raised his horn as if to show off like a sand shadow, and shouted, the game begins. The two people on the field began to test each other. Doug first threw a hidden weapon and was avoided by Pomir. When he avoided, Doug threw several darts in a row to take Pomel's key point. Pomel also not an ordinary person, he immediately stabilized his body and turned around to use his cloak to resolve the attack. Several elders on the stage couldn't help but applaud secretly. This time the attack was beautifully dodged. Doug saw him dodging the attack. He was also agitated in his heart, and rushed directly to melee attack. Pomir is a Chunin of the water country. How could he be frightened by Doug's restraint? I saw that he opened the distance first, jumped behind Doug, and then made a simple seal on his hand, slapped the ground with one hand, and shouted, water escape stab stray bullet. Quote. One of the elders of the Sand Kingdom on the stage could not help but be surprised when he stood up, and everyone was also surprised, not because of the power of this ninjutsu, but because of his mastery of ninjutsu. Before jumping to Doug's back, he had completed the complex knot seal and chakra condensation. What is even more valuable is that he could summon water freely. One of the elders couldn't help but sigh, Sand, the position of the consort of the country belongs to him. Because there are almost all ninjas from the land of sand, all they know are the techniques of sand, and water overcomes sand, so in the case of average strength, they only lose one. Just as Doug turned around, he saw that the water bomb was coming towards him. Just as the water bomb was about to eject Doug, Doug quickly made a handprint, and a sand wall stood in front of him to block the attack of the water bomb. But Pomir's water escape attack was just a feint. At this time, when Doug was trying to resist the water bomb attack, he was suddenly hit in the back. Doug lost consciousness, and fell to the ground like the sand wall. It was Pomir who attacked him. The person in charge on the stage broke the quiet atmosphere and immediately shouted, in the first game, Pomir won. Next, the audience on the stage burst into thunderous applause and cheers. The people who beat Doug to win were looking down in dejection as their money was taken away by the people who beat Pomir. Xiaying nodded involuntarily on the stage, and then she looked at her daughter's lonely appearance, and she felt uncomfortable. If it wasn't for Gaara's terminal illness, she wouldn't have to hold such a conference at all, and the elders around her would also have trouble. My own small abacus is also helpless. Before I knew it, the second game had already started, but the caravan outside the city had already arrived at the entrance of the game site. West woke up, Kakashi opened his eyes, yawned and ran away. It's strange, it should be in there by feeling, why can't I find it? Unconsciously, Kakashi walked to the stage. At this time, everyone in Sand Shadow, who was watching the second game, saw the person in charge who was blocking Kakashi from walking. Immediately greeted the person in charge to let him come over, and the person in charge also stepped aside with a helpless expression. Yo, Lord Sand Shadow, long time no see. Seeing it was Sand Shadow, Kakashi stood up and said, Isn't this Hatake Kakashi, why did you come here? Sand Shadow asked inexplicably. It's nothing, I just came to find a place to sit and watch the game, haha. Kakashi's acting skills are really brilliant. If he hadn't been covering it with that piece of cloth all day, he could have become an actor. Come on, bring a chair for Kakashi Junin. Sand Shadow greeted him, and after a while, the stool moved over, and Kakashi watched the game together in the middle of the empty seats of several elders. Damn, it's clearly shown here, where will it be? Kakashi stared at the stage but had no intention of watching. Suddenly, a player on the field used the burrowing technique, and a thought flashed through Kakashi's head. Could it be in the players? Chapter 214 The eyeballs are missing. Well, I'm sorry, Lord Sand Shadow, I'm sorry, I'll go to the toilet. Kakashi slowly stood up and said to the Sand Shadow who was fascinated, and the Sand Shadow also looked wonderful. He didn't think about it so much, and turned back and gestured politely to express his promise. Kakashi asked the person in charge where the player rest hall was. The person in charge pointed impatiently in one direction, and he didn't argue much, because now it's time to find that kid quickly. Don't make any trouble. Kakashi thought uncomfortably, always feeling that something was going to happen, so he stepped up to the hall. That's right, the feeling of the seal is getting stronger and stronger. Where is it? Kakashi mixed into the player area and watched carefully from time to time. Zhang Yang watched the two people fighting in the field from his seat. One was the Zhongnan guard of the Sand Kingdom. He was good at using sand escape techniques and golden sand hidden weapons. In fact, he applied chakra to the sand, which was similar to the golden sand thorn that Shengquan used against Zhang Yang last time. It's the same, but this Chunin guard has reduced him into a hidden weapon. The other person is a close disciple of a fighting technique master, who is well known in the Sand Country. This person looks big and thick, but his movements are very flexible. This person Zhang Yang thinks of the rap uncle in Hokage, but this is Sand the country is not Lei Yingguo, so it can't be him, and he also has no desire for anything. Thinking about it, it is even more impossible. I saw this man of 5 and 3 thick seeing the Zhongnan guard throwing the golden sand hidden weapon towards him. It was obvious that there was a very strong chakra on the hidden weapon, but he did a one-handed somersault to escape the attack. The Chunin guard didn't have too many expressions. This was originally what he took out to test. The next scene was surprising. The Sand Shadow Ninja quickly made a noon seal, and when he threw the golden sand dart, the 5 big 3 thick the man seemed to feel something and took a few steps back. There was a smile on the corner of the Sand Ninja's mouth, and there was a handprint on his hand that even the elders on the stage could not understand. After the seal was completed, the number of golden sand darts that originally only had one increased by hundreds or thousands all at once, forming a circle around the venue. The list seemed to revolve around, and the elders on the stage were not calm. What kind of ninjutsu is this? Why have I never seen it before? A white-robed elder had a surprised look on his face and couldn't help muttering to himself. In fact, it wasn't just him, but several other elders and Gaara were surprised. They had never seen such an unruly ninjutsu, and they themselves, how can such a talented ninja of the country not be reused? Oh, I see, this is an ancient ninjutsu in a village in the south of our country. I have played against such a person when I traveled everywhere, and depending on the degree of his use, it should be the inheritance of that ninjutsu. People. Xia Ying was surprised at first, and then suddenly realized what he said to the crowd. Everyone also looked incredible, but one of the elders asked a question. Did Master Xiaoying lose or win that battle? After hearing this, Xiaoying pondered for a while and said, how can I say it? It doesn't count as a win, and it doesn't count as a loss. As soon as these words came out, everyone was very puzzled. If you win, you will win. If you lose, you will lose. What is the situation if you don't win or lose? So everyone continues to ask. Sand Shadow took a breath and continued. At that time, I had a hard time fighting with that person. Later, in order to decide the winner, he used this trick, but we were all injured at the time, and he didn't use the amount. Now there are so many people, let's put it this way, this attack can't escape. I also used a gold duster to wrap myself up to barely die. I was hit by several sand darts and became seriously injured. I fell down with all my strength, that's why I didn't lose or win. Everyone exclaimed for a while. Although Lord Sand Shadow was not strong back then, at least he would not suffer. I didn't expect this ninjutsu to have such great power, and everyone continued to look at the field. Although, this ninja is a bit powerful, I don't know if I can interfere with it with my eyeballs. After saying this, Zhang Yang, who was watching the game in the lounge, reached out and touched the pocket where the eyeballs were placed. Originally, it was just a habitual touch, but he didn't expect that the pocket would be empty when he touched it. Zhang Yang began to look in the player lounge in a hurry. If this thing falls into the hands of other people, it will be a little troublesome. Zhang Yang thought to himself, I don't know what this thing does, but the thing from the Uchiha family will definitely not be bad. I don't want to change the course of Hokage's history. But Zhang Yang hasn't discovered that since the first day he came to this world, the Naruto world has begun to change quietly, and everything in the future has begun to change. Yo, I saw you. Kakashi suddenly found the publicity of looking for things all over the place, but when Kakashi leaned on the sensor and patted him on the shoulder. Wait, what are you doing? Zhang Yang looked back at the person who photographed him with an irritated face. Kakashi was also surprised. How could he recognize the wrong person? This person looks different from Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang didn't look natural when he found out that it was Kakashi, but after thinking about it, he was Koizumi now, and he couldn't recognize me, so he continued, who are you? Kakashi realized that he seemed to have recognized the wrong person, and hurriedly apologized. Haha, I'm sorry, I recognized the wrong person. After speaking, he walked away. In fact, it was walking away. It was better to say that he was observing secretly, because the chakra induction on the ceiling technique could not be wrong, so Kakasuit looked around casually. When Zhang Yang found out that Kakashi was chasing here, he couldn't help but scolded. I'm going, how can I chase here? I don't owe him anything, does this guy still want to arrest me and go back to study the autopsy? He caught it. At this time, there was a burst of explosions on the field, which attracted Kakashi and Zhang Yang to look. The field is now full of sand and dust, and only the figure of the Chunin and raised hands can be vaguely seen. After the smoke dissipated, the Chunin putting down his arms and clasping his hands on his chest, just when everyone thought he had won, the person in charge was about to shout with a loudspeaker, the winner is, Sand Shadow Village. Hold on, I'm not dead yet. The person in charge was suddenly interrupted by the people in the arena halfway through his speech. Everyone looked around and saw that when the sand and dust dispersed, a man full of chakra stood confidently in the arena, as if the fight just now did not cause any damage to him. A trace of damage. And Chunin, who just stood with his chest folded, also frowned, because this blow had exhausted all his chakra. He just wanted to fight quickly, but he didn't expect his opponent to be more powerful than him. Chapter 215 Black Spiral Pill. I actually raised the white flag. Did you really exhaust the chakra and admit defeat? Although the blow was very powerful, this method of exhausting all the chakra is too conceited. Zhang Yang thought in his heart, but when he looked back, he found that Kakashi was looking at him, and Zhang Yang understood in his heart why he chased here and found himself accurately. Even after he had a disguise, but he can still distinguish himself. Zhang Yang can't help thinking that this is too scary. Is his chakra suppressed by him? Grandma is a bear. What a loss for labor and capital. Now is not the time to look for eyeballs. Now we must enter the selection quickly and get rid of this trouble. Even so, Kakashi is still staring at him, as if he wants to see through Zhang Yang. Win or lose. Lao Huang wins and enters the next round. The person in charge continued to shout at the top of the stage. Zhang Yang in the lounge had long been restless, and he wanted to beat this guy all over the place to find his teeth, but unfortunately he must be much better than himself. Genius ninjas are no joke. Former Anbu ninjas, with wheel eyes, can copy thousands of ninjutsu. I wanted to remember the power I got in the pirate world other than the knife that day, but I couldn't remember anything, which made Zhang Yang worried. Just when he was staring at him and fidgeting, the person in charge began to roar again. The last round, Nongfu Spring vs. Vortex Kate. The host looked at the sand shadow, and the sand shadow signaled that it could start, and the person in charge continued to shout. The game begins. The restless Zhang Yang had an excuse to escape, and he breathed a sigh of relief. He quickly found the entrance and walked in. Kakashi was also watching the game on the field at all times. Once Zhang Yang used chakra even a little bit, he would be caught by Kaka. West sensed. Foxtail, let me leak it out. Kakashi looked at Zhang Yang who was in place on the court. As long as he used chakra, it proved that he had found the right person, and he would be caught and brought back by then. Kate is a young man, the same age as Kakashi, but has a stubborn aura on her body. She looks at Zhang Yang with bad intentions, but Zhang Yang doesn't care much about such a small role. Just using the fighting technique can make her look good. His existence fell in minutes, and after realizing Zhang Yang's indifference, Kate launched the first wave of offensive. Spiral pills. This made Zhang Yang feel a little excited. It seems that all those who use spiral pills are good people. Isn't that how they are all played on TV? Kate was about to run to Zhang Yang with the spiral pill, and Zhang Yang also had a whim. If he tried the spiral pill by himself, he thought so in his heart, but he had already started to gather chakra in his hands. On the other side, Kakashi suddenly felt the touch of the seal, and seeing that Zhang Yang was condensing chakra on the field, Kakashi looked like I guessed right, and decided that it was Zhang Yang. Kakashi did not suppress the seal, but let him suppress it within a controllable range, and the situation on the field was once seen by a mysterious person. Spiral pills. Spiral pills. Unexpectedly, Zhang Yang condensed the black spiral pill, but he had no chance to consider hitting it directly with Kate's spiral pill. Kakashi was surprised when he looked at the black spiral pill. How could there be such a color spiral pill? And the Sand Shadow and Gaara on the stage were also surprised. Even the well-informed Sand Shadow fell. Looking at the change, of course, the man in black in the audience was also taken aback, and there was an uproar at the scene. Kate has used the spiral pill for so long, and it is the first time she has seen the black one, but the spiral pill is pressing step by step so that Kate cannot be distracted. When the two spiral pills were about to explode, the black spiral pill suddenly absorbed the other spiral pill, and the black spiral pill without obstruction went straight to Kate. After Kate saw the black spiral pill that had increased a lot, naturally, he didn't dare to take it hard, so he had to jump to other places in embarrassment. A black spiral pill plunged into the ground, and a huge shock wave occurred. The audience in the audience was lifted by the wind. Sand Shadow couldn't sit still. He quickly built a sand wall with Gaara and a few elders to resist the shock wave. Ailua was responsible for saving those who were washed away with sand binding, and Kate, who had just fallen to the ground, was also pushed by the shock wave. Zhang Yang used chakra to resist the shock wave, and it was considered a firm foothold. He didn't know he would use such a thing, and he was also lying in his heart. Kakashi took all this in his eyes and faced Zhang Yang in his heart. The fear is even deeper. I have to take him back. Kakashi only had this thought in his heart, so he looked at Zhang Yang more carefully and looked for his weaknesses. The smoke dissipated, the elders and Sand Shadow and Gaara were on stage again. Sand Shadow also began to pay attention to the boy on the field who was about the same age as his daughter, and he felt a layer of satisfaction in his heart. But Sha Ying's daughter was also stunned. You must know that she also watched the game. She had no interest in anyone's fights and moves. It could even be said that it didn't make her heart flutter, but when she saw this boy when she used the black spiral pill, it reminded her of the words of the fortune teller in Sand Shadow Village. What? Who is your sweetheart? Ha ha ha, princess, it's the right person to ask me. If there are others, I can't tell, but if you are, there will only be one. Seeing that he was hesitating, the princess at that time urged her to continue speaking. At this time, the fortune teller mother-in-law said solemnly, I want you to promise me one thing for him. If it can be done, then I will tell you. When the princess thought that she was already with her sweetheart by then, there should be no problem with one thing, and her mother-in-law would not harm him, so she promised to let it go. At this time, the fortune-telling mother-in-law smiled and continued, this person will come down from the sky at that time. Carrying a sharp blade and being seriously injured, the princess does not have to go to find him laboriously. You only need to ask your father to hold a martial arts competition when you find your husband, and that person will appear by himself. The princess asked, then how can I recognize him, and why did he fall from the sky with serious injuries? The divination mother-in-law smiled and continued, his characteristic is obvious, that is, he will use black spiral pills. Wow, black, awesome, hee hee. The princess felt incredible, and then asked, then why did he get so wounded and fall from the sky? The mother-in-law came over for a long time and did not speak again, but just asked the princess the question, Princess, if this person may bring you misfortune, including your father's death, will you still accept it? The princess was silent for a long time in front of her mother-in-law, and then slowly said, is there no solution? Yes, I killed him with my own hands. Chapter 216 It's him. The princess's tears couldn't stop but she continued to ask, who is he, and why must he bring misfortune? The mother-in-law sighed and urged the princess to go back. The princess pretended to go back, but was still eavesdropping at the door. The room was quiet for a while, except for the sound of moving footsteps. For a long time, just when the princess couldn't wait, the mother-in-law in the room sighed, silly child, he is not from this world. Hey, daughter, are you all right? Xiaying shook the daughter who was thinking about it, and surprised the princess, Oh, I'm fine. Sand Shadow looked at her daughter strangely, but didn't care too much, and began to pay attention to the field again. Zhang Yang didn't expect that this Kate could only throw spiral pills, and he threw quite a lot, which made Zhang Yang, who was about to end the battle, breathless, and could only keep avoiding. Zhang Yang felt that he could not sit still, so he started to fill up his chakra to see how many chakras he could have. It doesn't matter if I don't mention it. After I mentioned it, Kakashi here was suddenly in pain, because at the time, I thought that he could have a little chakra. As long as it was within the control range, there would be no accident. Yes, it has grown geometrically, and Kakashi can hardly control it. It will definitely be dangerous to mention so many chakras at once. So Kakashi began to seal on Kakashi's hand, and the swollen chakra was pressed down again, feeling the chakra passing by and looking towards Kakashi, and found that Kakashi was forming a seal. Damn. I guessed it was this grandson. With this distraction, Zhang Yang didn't see the spiral pill in the blind spot of the viewing angle, and was blasted far away, and Zhang Yang, who was still flying in the air, hadn't landed, and was caught up by the super-fast spiral pill until he fell to the ground. Kate is still bombing with spiral pills. All of the onlookers thought that Kate was going to put someone to death, and Kakashi realized that he had done a stupid thing and caused Zhang Yang to be miserable, but he couldn't get involved. Suddenly, Kakashi saw Kate stop. After the attack of the spiral pill, he started to form seals. Kakashi has seen thousands of ninjutsu, and he will copy it himself. He himself knows this ninjutsu well. Corrosion. Kakashi knew in his heart that this technique has been banned, and the second technique is only available to the Uchiha family. Once it is stuck to this technique, the whole body will dissolve and die, even if it is a little bit. I don't know how many people will endure it. Under the power of this technique. Kate had already made the seal, and she saw Kate lying on the ground with one hand, and a pile of corrosive liquid appeared on the ground and sprinkled towards Zhang Yang. Kate already felt that Zhang Yang was going to die. Run! Realizing that something was wrong, Kakashi shouted loudly to the field. C tilde. It was the sound of the wall that the liquid rushed over to corrode. Looking closely, Zhang Yanggren was no longer in place, and Xia Ying on the stage silently felt that this boy was definitely very human, much more powerful than when he was young. And the princess's dangling heart also let go, and continued to watch the arena in disgust. You want to kill me, wait for me. Zhang Yang looked at the person on the opposite side with tattered clothes. As soon as he finished speaking, Kate waved his hand away, and the corrosive liquid in the sky was scattered towards Zhang Yang. The princess's heart lifted again, and Zhang Yang, who saw the liquid coming over, was about to jump away, and then it was found that this was a feint attack to attract his attention, and the real attack was the sand binding under Zhang Yang's feet. I didn't expect that he would actually know the ninjutsu of the Sand Country. Who is he? Zhang Yang couldn't find a way to escape, and looked at the corruption that filled the sky with despair. He looked at Kakashi who had harmed him, probably because he was embarrassed. Kakashi scratched his covered face. Right, there is a way. Zhang Yang's memory suddenly recalled the conqueror in the world of pirates. Zhang Yang was bluffing with anger, and the momentum of the whole person suddenly made people feel awe. When did people in this world see such a thing? There was an urge to kneel, and the man in black also showed a troubled look. The corrosive liquid in the sky was bounced back by this coercion in an instant. Kate avoided it even though she was afraid in her heart. She looked at this not simple boy carefully, and found that Zhang Yang had a strange thing in one eye. After a closer look, Kate was so frightened that she quickly took out the white flag and held it high in surrender. When Kakashi followed this change and looked at Zhang Yang, he couldn't help but take a step back. The face behind the black mask was full of horror. Yes, I can't read it wrong, that's Rinnegan. Kakashi tried his best to restrain the trembling in his heart and the excitement in his body. He didn't expect that this child would have such a thing. The people on the stage didn't see the flamboyant Rinnegan. After seeing the white flag, the person in charge raised the horn and shouted, Nongfu Spring has won. After breaking the silence, the whole field began to resume discussions, and Zhang Yang was also awakened by this reminder. At the moment when Zhang Yang's momentum subsided, Rinnegan gradually faded and gradually returned to normal. Yes, I won, but if every game is this kind of enemy, I won't be exhausted. Zhang Yang thought about it as he walked towards the exit. The shadow under the setting sun was getting longer and longer. Kakashi suddenly realized that Zhang Yang was going to leave, and immediately chased after him. Everyone, this is the end of today's competition, and it will continue tomorrow. Please come back, everyone. The person in charge also took a breath after shouting. Sand Shadow led a group of elders and daughters to disperse. The people were almost dispersed, and the man in black stayed on the field and said to himself, so this thing is here. Finally found it. After speaking, a group of crows scattered, and the people were gone. Yo, where do you want to go? Kakashi turned his back to Zhang Yang, because he knew that Zhang Yang would go this way, and Zhang Yang didn't expect Kakashi to be one step ahead of him. Who are you? I don't know you. Zhang Yang pretended to be crazy and said stupidly, but Kakashi had already seen through his identity. Stop pretending, we all know it well. I don't care where you got your chakra disguise, but you have to follow me. Why are you so funny? I'll leave if you tell me to go. Are you my father? You can call if you want, I don't mind. Zhang Yang looked at Kakashi in front of him with an expression like eating shang. At this time, a dart stabbed. Kakashi quickly pulled Zhang Yang back, and Zhang Yang also felt the opponent's attack, and instantly adjusted his posture to defend the enemy together. Tell me, how could the elder Rinnegan of the Uchiha family be in your hands? After a man covered by crows finished speaking, the crows all dispersed and saw the whole picture of this person. Chapter 217 Uchiha Itachi. When Zhang Yang saw the iconic nasolabial pattern, he knew that this time he encountered a big trouble again, it should be said that it was another hang. Kakashi also saw this person and couldn't help but blurt out, "Uchiha Itachi, why are you here?" "Hatake Kakashi, it's been a long time." Itachi looked at Kakashi with his kaleidoscope scribing eyes, and Kakashi wondered how this kid got involved with Itachi. Zhang Yang looked at Kakashi with a confused face, and Zhang Yang himself was not sure. Looked at Itachi and said that he didn't know anything. "That Itachi, what are you asking me to hand over?" Zhang Yang said to Itachi. "Hand over the Rinnegan on you, hand it over to me, and I'll let you go." Not to mention how Itachi knew that he had Rinnegan, he didn't even know where he was, how could he ask him for it? "I don't know where and how you asked me to pay him. I've already lost him." Itachi listened to Zhang Yang's defense and felt that he was perfunctory. The writing wheel of his eyes turned for a while. Kakashi, who had been prepared for a long time, saw the movement in Itachi's eyes, and his brows were furrowed. When Zhang Yang was about to defend, he suddenly felt AA forces coming towards him. The two instinctively took a few steps back, and if they stopped for another second, they would be stabbed by a sudden spike. Seeing this scene, Zhang Yang couldn't bear to scolded, "Even if you are hanging B, you don't have to be so arrogant. Sooner or later labor and capital will destroy you." And Kakashi talked to Itachi on his own. "Itachi, you've grown a lot since Anbu parted ways." Itachi still looked at Zhang Yang blankly and said, "I don't mean to hurt you today, I just want that thing." Zhang Yang asked inexplicably, "Didn't I tell you that the thing was lost, why do you still ask me for it?" Itachi said with an unpredictable smile, "Aren't your eyes still there?" Zhang Yang couldn't understand it, but Kakashi next to him understood as soon as he heard it. It turns out that the Rinnegan that Zhang Yang used today is what Itachi was looking for, and this thing was originally attached to an eyeball, but Zhang Yang put the eyeball on it. Sleeping next to him, he just touched the eyeball, and then the back eyeball found the host again. But Zhang Yang couldn't see his own changes and thought he had lost his eyeballs, but in today's game, Kakashi and Itachi discovered Rinnegan's secret at the same time. Kakashi thought to himself, if this kid was taken away by Itachi and used to get Rinnegan down, he might find out more secrets about this kid, and this kid is not a fuel-efficient lamp, even the person who saves him has to be beaten. If it is instigated by Itachi to make trouble, it will have to cause the Third Ninja World War. No, you can't give this kid to him, you must bring it back to Konoha. Itachi, this child, I must bring it back. Kakashi said firmly to Itachi, but the adults who boasted that this body was a child couldn't help but feel a strange feeling that he would always be a child in front of his father. Then it's just tough. After Itachi said this, the scene around Zhang Yang and Kakashi suddenly changed. In a space that seemed to be forever or time suspended, it was desolate, and there was a scene of dusk everywhere, like blood-stained, and Itachi had disappeared, and only Kakashi and Zhang Yang stayed where they were. "Boy, just listen to me if you don't want to die, don't run around." Kakashi seems to be worried about this child, but Zhang Yang doesn't want to refute now, just thinking about something. After a long time, he wanted to ask Kakashi, but Kakashi interrupted Zhang Yang and said, we were caught in his illusion. From the time he looked at us, we were already in his illusion, and it was still as strong as it was back then." Quote. Kakashi waved his hand helplessly, then turned around and searched around to find a way to crack it. Zhang Yang, who was silent at this moment, patted Kakashi and said, "Look, what are those?" Kakashi turned his head and looked in the direction of Zhang Yang's finger. A group of crows flew towards them densely and loudly. Kakashi stood in front of Zhang Yang, but Zhang Yang's unyielding character, how could Kakashi protect himself? So standing in front of Kakashi, when the crows swooped down in front of the two, Kakashi took out his dagger, ready to fight at any time, and Zhang Yang also raised his vigilance. After the crow flew down, it scattered around, leaving Itachi in place. Itachi looked at the two of them expressionlessly, especially Zhang Yang's eyes. "Boy, hand over Rinnegan and I'll let you go." Itachi still said to Zhang Yang with a blank face, how did Zhang Yang know that Rinnegan had gone into his body? And he denied it. "I said no or no, it's amazing, labor and capital are also golden fingers. Kakashi was in a fog and couldn't understand what Zhang Yang was saying, but looking at Itachi, Itachi seemed to want to do something. It seemed that Itachi Zongyang refused to hand over Rinnegan and wanted to take it by force. Wait, you still won't let me go, don't think you can do whatever you want when you enter Shao. Zhang Yang was so angry that he scolded him without thinking, and Itachi stopped. He looked at Zhang Yang in surprise, as if he had told a secret. Kakashi was about to fight, and Itachi noticed that after Zhang Yang said this, Itachi the movement stopped, and a strange face turned to Zhang Yang. I didn't expect you to know this secret besides getting Rinnegan, it seems you have to die. Itachi looked surprised for a moment and then calmly said, but the words in this calm word were not so reassuring, and Kakashi's heart was lifted again. Bankai spiral pills. Zhang Yang had been eager to fight for a long time. As soon as Itachi finished speaking, Zhang Yang thought it was exactly what I wanted, condensed chakra in his hand and threw out a black spiral pill. 10-fist sword. Not to be outdone, Itachi threw a 10-fist sword and flew towards Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang's spiral pill, which was ready to be fired, came out of his hand like a bullet. The fight between the two made the space a little strange, but how could Zhang Yang, who was focused on the battle, go pay attention to those small changes? Then he rolled out several spiral pills in a row to help out, but Kakashi noticed this slight change and began to think about something while watching the fight between the two. Bang! Bang! Two violent collisions, the black spiral pill was bounced by the cross fist and hit other places to explode. For a while, the spiral pill was also torn apart in the illusion, revealing the blank part of black and white. Itachi discovered the tear during the fight. The shattered cracks, after exiting the battle, immediately waved empty-handed, and the torn place began to be mended again. Zhang Yang also quit the battle and wanted to use a more powerful method to deal with Itachi. Chapter 218 Genius Kakashi's Strategy. At this time, there was a sudden burst of electric current next to Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang just turned around and found that Kakashi's hand was covered by a burst of electric current, emitting a dazzling light, and the bursts of irregular thunder and lightning emitted by the light almost spread the entire space. Without waiting for Zhang Yang to make the next move, the scattered thunder and lightning in the hallucination space took advantage of the situation, and attached to a point to form a giant python that seemed to have a soul. But Kakashi had already run away with an afterimage, and the giant python also with Kakashi rushing in the hand. The sound of space breaking can be seen everywhere. When Itachi was distracted by filling the hole in the illusion, an air-breaking electric current came and pierced Itachi's body. When he found Kakashi, only a voice accompanied him. Rachel. It only took Kakashi 2 seconds from the start of running to penetrating Itachi. Although Zhang Yang on the side was faster than Kakashi, the explosive power of this moment and the sophistication of choosing the right timing, Kaka. She was even better, with 180 likes in Zhang Yang's heart. Finally convince me of that hanging bee, let you pretend. Kakashi put away the thunderbolt in his hand and said, the clone is gone, come out by yourself. I saw a crow falling out of the fallen Itachi, and Itachi disappeared, leaving only a crow whose body was cut by Lei and fell motionless on the ground. Only then did Zhang Yang know that he had been beaten for a long time. Itachi is actually a clone, and Kakashi has already seen it. How could I forget this? Itachi is standard for Itachi in addition to skills like Amaterasu and Yuyu, as well as clones. Zhang Yang muttered to himself on the spot, but this is Itachi's fantasy space. Their every move and self-talk will be heard clearly by Itachi in the dark. Itachi thought to himself, this person knows all kinds of things about me. The move also knows where I belong now, but this will be a big deal, this kid must die. Amaterasu. Itachi's voice sounded from all directions. Kakashi's most worrying thing came, and he hurriedly looked at Zhang Yang and said, boy, pay attention, run quickly, don't get hit. Kakashi shouted at Zhang Yang anxiously, and Zhang Yang began to close his eyes and urge his nerves to pay attention to abnormalities in all directions. As long as there is a little movement, Zhang Yang will immediately know where Itachi is, and then he can counter the opponent. Zhang Yang suddenly opened his eyes and looked ahead, because he sensed something abnormal in front of him, and saw a few groups of Amaterasu attacking Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang thought to himself, how come there are so many? We can only put one at a time. But there was no more think. When Amaterasu was approaching, Zhang Yang jumped far away with a charge, and Kakashi shouted loudly across from Zhang Yang. Boy, back! After hearing this, Zhang Yang turned his head and found that there were also several Amaterasu flying towards him, but he couldn't dodge in the air. Besides, this was Itachi's fantasy, and he couldn't escape at all. Kakashi looked at Zhang Yang, who was in crisis, and suddenly saw the break-up crow on the ground. Kakashi suddenly realized that he shouted to Zhang Yang, boy! There is only one Amaterasu, the others are clones. Zhang Yang nodded at Kakashi, then condensed several black spiral pills in his palm and threw them at the Amaterasu, only to see that the surrounding Amaterasu disappeared after being hit. Just when the two wondered where Amaterasu was, Kakashi suddenly his eyes widened and he shouted in an unquestionable tone. On it! Zhang Yang, who was about to land, looked up and found that Amaterasu had burned his hair. Zhang Yang felt sad and happy in his heart. Sadly, he didn't escape Amaterasu. He was happy that Amaterasu finally came out. Kakashi didn't see it. Well, if you continue to burn like this kid will definitely lose his life. This Amaterasu is not afraid of fire and water. Unless it burns people to death, it will never be extinguished. Zhang Yang's scalp began to make a scalding sound of boiling water. This heart-wrenching feeling made Zhang Yang, a man who had experienced countless battles, feel it was difficult to persevere. Kakashi pulled down the mask, revealing the writing wheel under the blindfold, and said, good opportunity. Zhang Yang suddenly heard Kakashi's voice, which was not too small, but made people tremble. Divine might. Zhang Yang's pain disappeared at once, but the sky was torn apart, and the white light inside seemed to absorb the nearby things like a black hole. Kakashi held up the mask and quickly pulled Zhang Yang up and jumped into the white hole. Hey, take a sigh of relief. Kakashi stood at the place where he caught up with Zhang Yang and joked relaxedly with Zhang Yang, while Zhang Yang on the ground only cared about whether his hair was burnt, but Imo-K found that there was no damage to his hair, which was very strange. Amaterasu is not ordinary fire, it only burns people's soul and bone marrow. When all these are burned, your hair will be broken when touched. Zhang Yang didn't hate Kakashi in his heart either, because he saved him twice, but he was facing each other with a sword. He was about to stand up with Kakashi explaining it well, but found a group of crows in a black-clothed red-bottomed the man stood on his shoulders for a long time, and Kakashi was also looking at the man. Zhang Yang rubbed his eyes, isn't this Itachi? Hatake Kakashi, I really underestimated your genius. If you hadn't interfered with me, maybe this kid would have been burned to death by me. Itachi said to Kakashi with a flat face, and Kakashi smiled and said, it's this kid who bought me time, otherwise I don't know where to start. Kakashi's words gradually became dull. The conversation between the two seemed to be strangers. Zhang Yang looked at Kakashi with inquiring eyes, and asked in his heart what was going on. Kakashi guessed what Zhang Yang wanted to ask, so he smiled at Zhang Yang, as if you don't care about the affairs of an adult. Just as Zhang Yang was about to have an attack, Itachi opened his mouth to help Kakashi tell the truth. It's okay to tell you. In fact, Kakashi discovered that the illusion can be destroyed when you and I were fighting, so he pretended to use Rachel to hit my clone, but he already knew it was a clone and tried his best to fight. In fact it is to probe where my body is with a weak current, and then feign to attack my body. Quote. Itachi looked at Kakashi for a while, and Kakashi returned Itachi with a look of, you're right. Then Itachi continued. You know that after my clone is discovered, I want to kill Zhang Yang first, and you accurately judged the situation at the time and I would use Amaterasu, and I almost forgot the existence of your eyes, and then fell into your trap. When I hit Amaterasu on Zhang Yang, you used your divine power to transfer Amaterasu to the place where the electric current probed into my body. Although Amaterasu was no threat to me, it would still be distracted to deal with it, and at that moment you escaped from my fantasy with Zhang Yang, are you right, Kakashi? Chapter 219 Kakashi's Request. Hee, so what? Anyway, I want to take this child away, don't waste your time. Kakashi said to Itachi with a cold face and non-negotiable, and Zhang Yang also began to slowly gather chakra to try to throw the chakra in Bankai state. Kakashi felt Zhang Yang's change, but did not stop it. This child is not simple. Although it is Itachi's clone, but at his age, he can fight against S-rank rebellion, which is enough to show the strength of this child. Kakashi looked at the side, ready to prey at any time like a hungry wolf, and secretly admired in his heart. Don't put on such a posture, you are not qualified to be my opponent now, and I should go too, boy, I will come back to you. Zhang Yang was unhappy. Hearing this, his body became very dry. He injected Bankai with one hand into the prepared spiral pill and threw it out. Kakashi didn't stop it. Flying around, the spiral pill, like hitting on cotton, did not receive much resistance and was launched backward through the crows and exploded behind the crows. Zhang Yang wanted to catch a crow and kill him to vent his anger, but Kakashi stopped Zhang Yang and motioned him not to be impulsive. The place after the explosion attracted the surrounding ninjas, and Kakashi and Zhang Yang hurried to hide elsewhere. But in their haste, they didn't see a crow with a riding wheel eye watching Zhang Yang on a wooden stake not far from them. At dusk, the sun was about to set. Except for the place where the explosion just happened, everything here seemed so peaceful, and Kakashi and Zhang Yang were full and rushing back. Kakashi finally had time to have a good chat with this young man. After sorting out his thoughts, he opened a chat with Zhang Yang. You have seen what happened today. Itachi is about to kill you, and you seem to know a lot of things. If you are alone outside, you will be in trouble. Kakashi held his head in both hands and walked on the road while chatting with Zhang Yang, as if the topic was very relaxed. What do you want me to do? Zhang Yang also answered very happily. It just so happens that our Lord Hokage Tsunade from Konoha village also wants to see you. Consider going back with me. Konoha village should have the answer you want. Kakashi looked at Zhang Yang so cheerfully, and said straightly, Kakashi had to take him back if he couldn't knock him out. If he refused, he would do it again. For the sake of saving me over and over again, I promise to go back to Konoha village with you, but I have to participate in this competition. No matter whether I win or lose, I will go back with you. Zhang Yang also told Kakashi his own thoughts without reservation, but if he knew Kakashi's black belly, he might not have said so. Oh, haha, no problem, I promise you. Kakashi saw that Zhang Yang was so good at talking, and the stone hanging in his heart fell, and then he began to understand the situation of this kid. He didn't even know his name, how could he do it? I'm Kakashi Hitaki. Now I'm in class 7, so I can be considered a teacher. What about you? What's your name? Zhang Yang felt contempt in his heart for a while. This old boy is still hiding deep. He didn't even say his ninja level, whether it was humility or prudence, but he also replied. My name is Nongfu Spring. It's not good to lie, I said the real name. Kakashi saw that Zhang Yang was lying to him, so he stopped and looked at Zhang Yang and said. Zhang Yang also suddenly thought, how can a meticulous person like Kakashi not see such trivial things as people lying? It made him see that he was not a person from the land of 5 shadows, and there was nothing to be afraid of when he said his name. My name is Zhang Yang. After seeing that Zhang Yang showed no signs of lying, Kakashi resumed his previous posture and continued to walk, then thought for a moment and asked. This name, I seem to have heard it somewhere. Oh, yes, you are Chinese. Kakashi pulled out his hands holding his head and patted it. It is not surprising for Kakashi to have an epiphany, because very few people know about the outside world in this place, not to mention that the existence of China is known to very few people. Well, I'm Chinese. But Zhang Yang was speechless in the face of this mental retardation, but he couldn't point to Kakashi's face and scold that there are 2 Chinese people in your village and they meet every day, and pretend to think hey. Probably seeing Zhang Yang's silence, Kakashi thought his silence reminded him of his hometown, so he looked at Zhang Yang with sympathy, but Zhang Yang was baffled by this look. What's wrong with me TMD? The two walked back to Shengquan's house in such an atmosphere, ending the day's exhaustion. The next morning, the player hall was still very lively, but most of them were eliminated players. Everyone wanted to see who came to the end, and Zhang Yang was constantly exercising his body to keep his muscles flexible, while Kakashi he leisurely looked at the little yellow book written by Jiraiya. Zhang Yang didn't care about him anymore, and when he was bending over, he saw a short man with a puppet on his back, with a few lines of purple oil paint on his face, looking like a wizard. The man found Zhang Yang. Right, Zhang Yang smiled mechanically, as if he was between his palms, but when Zhang Yang straightened up and looked back, the man had disappeared, and only a group of people were there discussing things. Could it be that I am blinded? Zhang Yang thought in puzzlement. Feng Ying on the stage was finished sitting, and the elders were all sitting upright. Gaara stood beside Feng Ying watching the arena, and the princess was waiting with anticipation for his sweetheart to appear. Everything was ready, and there was no audience seat absent, because after all, this is the family business of Lord Feng Ying and the prosperity of this country. Everyone who can come has already arrived, and the person in charge picked up the horn and shouted. Now there are 12 people advancing to the game, and the rule for the second game is free scuffle, and the one who beats everyone in the end wins. As soon as this statement came out, there was an uproar in the audience, and everyone was talking about it, and I saw a man serving a ninja asking an old man serving a civilian. How can it be such a rule? I don't remember this kind of melee before. The old man said with a sigh. This kind of cruel duel can make the truly powerful people have to reserve Feng Ying after they become, presumably the elders and Lord Feng Ying think so. The young man nodded, if he knew, and said nothing. At the same time, after hearing the words introduced by the person in charge, there were mixed feelings in the contest hall. I originally wanted to use some small tricks, but I didn't expect it to turn into a multi-person melee, alas. A man muttered to himself with his head down in the crowd. Chapter 220 Puppet Master Konkuro. Zhang Yang didn't react much because for himself, it was the same as anyone else, and he had to win anyway. Although Kakashi on the side looked very leisurely, he also noticed the situation, and he decided to observe it secretly. If something goes wrong, be prepared to take action in time, so that nothing happens to this kid Zhang Yang. To put it bluntly, Kakashi still treats Zhang Yang as a child. Now, please enter the field and retreat to the border in turn, leaving a gap of 50 meters between each player. The person in charge continued to roar with the loudspeaker, and the elders had already put earplugs on, and let him go shouting. Zhang Yang and the others played together, each of them stood up, and Zhang Yang looked around the audience from the position near the exit. See which players are available. From the right side, there are strong fighting technique ninjas, there is Pumir from that day, and there is a man with a purple pattern on his face in a black coat. He is carrying a mummy-like doll behind him. Zhang Yang secretly surprised and said, "This is the person I saw just now," and this person Zhang Yang knows that he is the eldest son of this generation of Feng Ying. Konkuro, a rare puppet master. A man beside Zhang Yang looked at Konkuro and said in surprise, but why did he come to participate in his sister's martial arts contest? Now, I declare, the game begins. The person in charge glanced at Feng Ying. Feng Ying signaled that it could start. As usual, although he saw Konkuro, he was still as calm as usual, and the person in charge dared to announce the start of the game loudly. As soon as the person in charge finished speaking, the battle on the field was about to break out. A water dragon bullet was quickly issued from Pumir's hand. When it was released, it was split into several larger water bullets and smashed towards the opposite side, and the people on the opposite side also formed the seal. Resisting the water bombs, the water and fire on the field collided, and Konkuro released a four-handed puppet to scatter bombs everywhere. The scene was chaotic for a time, the sound of explosions, the smoke from the collision of water and fire, the sand and stones that the fighting technique master smashed the ground with his punches overlapped with all kinds of smoke, and Zhang Yang couldn't find his opponent and could only dodge all kinds of ninjutsu and stray bullets. When the bomb attacked, Zhang Yang looked helplessly at the person who was fighting in front of him, and had to smile bitterly. I hate kids shorter than me the most. Kankuro, who got out of nowhere, saw Zhang Yang, a child who was shorter than him, and when he was angry, Yuyan summoned the puppet behind him. Crow, come out. The mummy behind Kankuro suddenly split open, and it was quiet for a few seconds in the messy and noisy battle. Just when Zhang Yang thought there was no movement, a poisonous needle suddenly fell from the sky and took Zhang Yang's head directly. Nerve told him to run away immediately. Zhang Yang jumped away, saw the poison needle on the ground and Kankuro smiling, and understood that this was a trick of his. It seems that I have to deal with it carefully. Although I have the black spiral pill, I can't use it lightly. Otherwise, I can't get close to him when he finds out that I have such a powerful move. Zhang Yang was thinking in his heart, but he didn't know that the princess saw him fighting Kankuro, and she was worried to death, and Gaara next to him saw Kankuro and seemed to understand something. At the same time, Kakashi saw Zhang Yang. The opponent of Zhang Yang was also worried for a while, because this guy is more than a puppet. Can this kid Zhang Yang handle it? One by one began to fall down. Zhang Yang watched these people gradually decrease, and there was a sense of oppression or stimulation in his heart, because the rest were all powerful, and he might be able to fight with them. It can improve his strength, and now he has the ability to remember, and the moves that he has seen can basically be used once, Zhang Yang said with a slap on the head. Yes, I still have this ability, Kakashi's Rachel, Homir's Water Wall, and even Itachi's Amaterasu. But I can only use a little shadow, and I can't cause more damage. After Zhang Yang summed it up like this, he realized that he almost wasted this excellent opportunity to experiment. At this time, Kakashi watched Zhang Yang walk slowly and thought it was very strange. Why did Zhang Yang suddenly stop avoiding him? So he held his breath. Continue to read. Kankuro saw Zhang Yang's strange behavior and felt suspicious. He immediately called back the puppet crow, defended himself, and released another puppet with a head longer than the crow to dive towards Zhang Yang. Kakashi could see it clearly from the sidelines. At this time, Kankuro's second puppet was of the offensive type. The puppet's mechanical mouth looked like it was smiling strangely, and the puppet's hand was composed of two sharp rotating saws. The puppet's saw told the running going towards Zhang Yang. Seeing this sharp weapon, the hearts of the people on the field shuddered. If it flew towards him, he would definitely not be able to escape. Water escape. After Zhang Yang Jayan shouted, the puppet that swooped down rushed into the water wall. Kankuro didn't understand what was going on, and at the same time, Pumir, who was seriously injured next to him, was surprised. He will also be secretive. Turn. Disregarding other people's eyes, Zhang Yang forcibly moved the water curtain in front of Kankuro. Kankuro was at a loss, and quickly controlled the crow to defend in front. The moment the crow came over, the puppet inside rushed out. The two circular saws in front hit the bomb thrown by the crow head on at high speed, causing heavy damage. The two puppets were instantly ejected by the bomb. Kankuro fell to the ground and was seriously injured. The audience was paying attention. The battle suddenly quieted down. Yo, this kid, it's not bad, it seems that I'm overthinking it. Kakashi began to identify with this genius boy in his heart. If he is cultivated a little, the righteous can guard the world, and if it is bad, it will destroy the world. I didn't expect. That kid actually learned my reflex art secretly. No, he must die, or it will definitely be detrimental to my family. Pumir thought, and then quickly got up and made a seal like a flashback. Water escape. The technique of treading the waves. Change. Zhang Yang saw Pumir coming towards him again, and there were turbulent waves under his feet, like a crazy sea with a storm coming. Everyone on the field felt the power of nature. In this place where it has not rained for many years, the sea is suffocating the sense of terror on the field. Feng Ying couldn't sit still, and summoned several elders to prepare to protect the safety of the audience in the field. And Zhang Yang saw the waves that took up half of the huge field. No, strictly speaking, it should be the sea water that burst the embankment. Anyone who can escape, whether they are seriously injured or still fighting, has no ability to resist under this sea water and is directly engulfed.